This time we're going to go on to our work session discussion items. First up, it would be whether or not any of the board members would like to discuss any of the matters related to next board meeting. All right, here and now we're going to our first presentation, ATL Board, presented by Mr. Ricky Clark.
Hey, Scott.
He is, I said he is, he'll identify himself.
Yes, he will, or he should.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair, members of the Clayton County Board of Commissioners. I promise my presentation today is only 30 minutes because I am certain that you're excited about all that is happening throughout this county. I'm going to slide through
Please
these
state your name
slides.
for us
My name is Ricky Lamar Clark, Jr.
and your position, ATL.
And you are?
Oh, I'm sorry, my apologies. I am the city manager for the great city of Forest Park, and I've been honored to serve as a board representative. I'm representing District 10 on the ATL board.
Thank you.
And so I was requested to do this gentle update on behalf of the ATL Transit Link Authority. We have Mr. Scott Haggard, who is here with us as well, who is a part of the amazing staff there at the ATL that ensure that from a operational side that we're doing everything in our power to spread the importance of transit around the region. All right, next slide, please. So again, just for those that don't know, the ATL board was created several years ago. And it's comprised of 16 members representing a wide range of perspectives regarding mobility options. Next slide, please. So for the ATL board representation that directly affects Clayton County, you have two board representatives, Mr. Howard Mosby, as well as myself, Mr. Ricky Clark. As it relates to current transit services, at current you'll see the ATL Express, which is a commuter bus service, as well as, of course, MARTA, who is a transit provider for this county. Next slide, please. So a lot of the work, of course, I'm in my first year in this seat, and the meetings are held quarterly. Of course, when you get on these boards, Clayton has always had representation on this board, but there's always a learning curve just to really figure out what is the sole purpose and function of this board. So one of the things that took me the longest to find out about this particular board, and the three main points that I want to focus on today, is advocacy, partnerships, and then the transit plan. As we've worked on this board just to try to outline what those various projects were, and deeper down in this presentation, it gets down into how you get your projects on the list. One of the things that I've observed, and I've heard Clayton County talk about this a lot, is we really need a transit plan. When we look at areas north of us, similar put, one of the great examples that I'll use is Gwinnett County. So Gwinnett County has received a lot of funding for transit opportunities solely because they had a plan that they followed for a number of years. And so when that list actually opens up, it's just a great opportunity for Clayton County, if we had a plan, or even if there is a plan on the table, for us to figure out and hone in on the projects that we can run through MARTA for funding requests from the ATL Transit Authority. So again, this regional transportation plan that the ATL does services 13 counties. There on the maps in front of you, you can see what some of these areas are within the purview of the ATL Transit Board. If you look at Fulton and DeKalb, we just look at local county initiatives. If you look at Fulton and DeKalb, who are in a similar situation with us, their sponsored transit entity is MARTA. Both of them have completed their transit plans. Essentially, Gwinnett and Cobb have completed their transit plans. And then finally, in working with the ATL Support and Atlanta Regional Commission, you have counties of Douglas, Forsyth, Henry, and Rockdale. One of the main things that I think we could focus on is how do we ensure that when the referendum with MARTA was passed, I believe it was 2013, 2014, how do we ensure that that transit plan is, one, updated, or two, as a collective and as a county, we began to push forward with a full transit plan so that when these grant opportunities come up through the ATL Transit Authority, the ATL Transit Board is funding those projects through our transit sponsor, which is MARTA. And so some of the projects that I'll highlight that we've currently embarked upon, for those that are not aware, the microtransit, which was funded for the ATL airport CIDs, as well as the MARTA project for BRT is on the list. But as I sent out correspondence, the project, just based upon sheer MARTA had to have ownership of some of the property before they could submit it for a funding request, that project is on there as well. One of the things I would encourage this board, as I know we have 4 individuals sitting in front of me that all have championed transit at some point or another, the largest thing I'd like you guys to consider is really focusing and honing in on how do we develop this transit plan. Because the way some of these other entities are being funded is because they are working their transit plans. With Gwinnett County, one of the examples that I use, Gwinnett County, they are their own transit entity. So they operate their own service. Again, just remember, in Clayton and DeKalb, our sponsor is MARTA. So I really want to make certain that I clarify what that looks like, because that's our opportunity to get funding. I'll pause for a second, Commissioner Hambrick.
Right, the previous, thing on here that had the counties, I didn't see Clayton on there, so what happened? What has happened with that?
No,
Clayton is
Not
here.
that one, not that one,
go back down.
with the transit plan.
Right there.
Yes, this one.
Large and in part, Clayton does not have a transit plan. And so that's one of the things I know in the past. I know Commissioner Franklin spoke of it some about the need for this transit plan. I know that Commissioner Hambrick, I've heard you talk about what are we doing with transit. It's like now, how do we leverage these other counties as models to begin to shape out what does our plan look like? You know, working with, again, I go back to the 3 points that I wanted to leave here: advocacy, partnerships. Recognizing that if we have MARTA at the table, the ATL, the staff of the ATL is willing to come in and talk about this is how Gwinnett got some of their funding. This is how Cobb got some of that funding. Also recognizing that in Gwinnett, I believe it is in November of this year, Gwinnett will even pass a transportation SPLOST to help fund the projects in conjunction with everything else that's been worked around the plan.
So now that's what you'll be working on with us.
It would be my pleasure. It would be my pleasure to coordinate, but it's going to take a concerted effort because as a board member, we focus on policy. So there are going to need to be transportation practitioners at a table and say, this is our long-range transit plan. And then at the end of that report, it's going to need to say, this is how we intend to fund that. One of the things, and I shared this with Chairman Turner, we know that we have transit opportunities because it took me 35, 40 minutes to get here from the top part of the county, just based upon all of the traffic on Terre Boulevard. And I don't know if, Scott, if you want to interject some there as to more ways that they can partner.
Who's they?
Clayton County. I'm sorry, Clayton County.
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
Well,
My apologies. More ways we can partner.
Thank you.
now, let me, real quick, since Mr. Chair allowed others to speak, I'll wait.
No, go ahead.
First of all, I want to say thank you for coming forth, and I'm going to go ahead and say this. You know, for 6 years, I served as the vice chair of the ATL Transit Link Authority. Clayton County held that vice chair seat. Clayton County for 6 years. When I first got on that board, I brought to this board with Chris as well as the entire staff of the ATL, letting us know back then that we did not have a transit plan of our own. What we have been doing is leaving it up to MARTA to give us whatever it is that they wanted. So at the end of the day, the part in which we play is never bigger than the whole. So I'm really, really excited that certain board members are now waking up and having certain questions, because one thing we know about time, one thing we know about progress, is that ship does not stop sailing just because we didn't get on it. So when the ATL was created back then, it was created for the sake of being able to be what's called a designated recipient. And for those in the audience that saw you move your head, please know that we had $2 million at our discretion initially, that at that time, Chris Tomlinson, as well as the chief financial officer of that time of the ATO, came and shared that with us, with both our current administration of operations. We chose to do nothing we chose to walk away and have a different conversation. So, Mr. Clark, I thank you that you've gotten people's attention today, and I pray that people understand that when we wait 6 to 10 years to move on something, to finally realize we've been missing out, then it puts our citizens back by 20 to 30 years, because things do not happen overnight with the state when it comes to federal and state funding. So I thank you so very much, and I thank you as well. Thank you, Scott. It's so good to see you again.
Please continue, sir.
Just in closing, Commissioner Hambrick, to your point, and Commissioner Franklin, if there is an individual that needs to serve as sort of that linchpin to pull this together and pull our partners together, I certainly do not mind in assisting with our practitioners in that effort. It is needed. And again, I want to make certain that we understand that this is by in no means a way for me to down the work that MARTA has done for this county, because without MARTA, we would not be connecting people with jobs and resources the way that we have here when this referendum was initially passed. It's just an opportunity for us to pivot and figure out another way to do this. And I believe in the spirit in which we all want to see this county grow as it relates to transit and transit-oriented development. There is no greater time than now for us to lead this charge and just simply bring together a meeting. I can ensure that we have ATL there. We can work with our partners to get MARTA there, as well as the commission, and figure out a place for us to start.
But Mr. Clark, that's the reason this board hired Ben. We're paying for someone that worked in the Office of Resiliency that's supposed to focus just on transit and transit development. And as you can see, Mr. DCOO is shaking his head. So if there's a disconnect there, staff understands it. This board voted on it. So I'm glad that you're now realizing that. So hopefully you and the current chairman will be able to have a conversation, and we don't have to wait till 2025 to get things done. I pray.
Any other questions, comments?
No, sir, I have nothing further at this time, just marching
I was talking
orders.
to the board members.
Oh, my apologies, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Tell everybody at the ATL I said hello. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Clark.
Thank you for the presentation, and yes, we will be having further discussions.
All right.
And
Thank
please
you,
get
sir.
with Mr. DCOO, because I know you talk to Dietrich all the time, but get with him, please, sir.
Dietrich is a stellar professional and an amazing brother.
And also, Mr. Clark,
Hold on, Mr. Clark.
and could you just, I guess, give us a brief suggestion as to how you believe would in our best interest to move forward? That'd be great.
For the sake of recognizing that I am only one voice,
Correct.
and collectively it takes the board as a unit, my recommendation would be that we convene a meeting.
Okay.
And in that meeting, representation needs to include the commissioners, the administrative executive offices, whomever the county has staff working with transit, as well as the ATL transit executives. And in that meeting, I think it needs to be a neutral third party, transportation consultant or a similar entity to spearhead, so that the meeting stays on a track of progress and nothing else.
And T&D must be there as well.
T&D, absolutely.
Don't forget that.
Would you recommend cities be involved?
I think at this juncture, because MARTA's direct contact is Clayton County, not the individual cities, because the contract is with the county, I think for the first initial meeting, it should just be county representation.
Thank you.
And what I'd like for you to do is work through the COO's office, Ms. Stanford's office, in terms of setting that meeting up, and then he'll be able to coordinate with the other pertinent stakeholders.
Absolutely. And my commitment to all of you, we'll try to get that worked out in the next 60
Well,
days.
thanks for bringing us a report.
My pleasure.
Thank you. All right, next up. Sports Council formation. I think, who's doing the presentation? Valencia Williams, Ms. Chamber President.
Hello, hello. Good evening. Hi, everyone. How are you? I'm Valencia Williamson. I'm President and CEO of Clayton County Chamber of Commerce. And I'm excited to be here today to talk a little bit about something that you all have, I'm sure, heard about over the years. Our counterpart here, Brandon McCartney, you guys know him from the Office of Economic Development, and I'll explain our link here in just a second. But the formation of the Sports Council came across my desk back in September of '23. I was talking to Commissioner Davis, and he talked about all that is happening across the nation as it relates to sports tourism, economic development, projects through sports and assets in various communities, and how they're linked up with chambers of commerce in order to bring the private sector and the public sector together. And so I did know of one person who knows a whole lot about sports and who has passion and drive for just this type of thing. And I thought of Brandon in the Office of Economic Development. So I asked him to join me today and also to help us kind of think about what such a thing would look like here in our community. So we put together a few slides based on some research that we've done with some stakeholders here in the community, as well as with some of my colleagues around the metro area. We talked to quite a few chambers of commerce who are in this space, as well as some not chambers of commerce that are in the space. But we got some really good information that we wanted to share, bring to your attention today, and delve a little deeper into this. So we'll roll right through. And so this is all a proposal, if you will. The proposed mission of a sports coalition, as we're calling it, is to spur economic growth through sports-related events that involve youth, collegiate, amateur, and professional organizations. And then, of course, that vision would be to create a sports coalition to generate that revenue. So this is a group of individuals that have sports focus in mind. They are solely looking to bring tournaments to this community so that we drive revenue through obviously shopping and dining, eating and staying and playing and hanging out and finding out how wonderful our community is. And so from our research around the nation, and Brandon, I'm going to let you jump in a little bit here, but before I do, I'll tell you that these numbers came to us from the Association of Sports Tourism. So, you know, these are real numbers that are post-COVID that are out there about job generation and tax revenues, as well as the economic impact. But we took it a step further and actually looked at some cities here in Georgia, some cities in the Southeast, some cities in the nation, and some that you're going to recognize as it relates to the tournament. So, Brandon, I'll turn it over to you and let you talk a little bit about some of these tournaments.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Valencia. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners. First, I want to applaud Commissioner Franklin for saying that a setback, 6 to 10 years ago, doesn't have to be something that pushes the community back 20 years from then. So first, I want to say thank you for that, because you realize that, something like that can, affect us negatively, and that's why we're here now to envision or re-envision what this will look like. So I want to say thank you for that. I'm Brandon McCartan, the marketing coordinator for the Economic Development Office, and I'm a new economic developer, but I've been a former athlete most of my life, all the way up to semi-professional, so I know a little bit about sports. Right now, so post-COVID, like Valencia said, the sports revenue has skyrocketed since before COVID, and right now is the perfect time, perfect opportunity to, grab this thing and take advantage of it. So the total economic impact for 2022 was $91 billion across the country, $91.8 billion across the country. There were 635,000 jobs generated, $12.9 billion total tax revenues in the country. Neighboring communities, neighboring organizations, neighboring states like Savannah, they had 1.5 in revenue for one tournament alone. Fountain City Classic brings nearly $1 million in economic impact for their game day alone. That's one day. CIAA, almost $30 million for that tournament alone. That's a huge tournament. Everybody knows it. That's just something that they bring in just for that tournament alone. There are about 30 sporting events in Sweet Falls, generated about $17 million of economic impact in South Dakota. That bottom one looks like a girls volleyball tournament, estimated $200 million for their tournament alone, and that's in Orlando, Florida. So those are just some numbers that we can mimic based on our location, since we're right here in a centralized location for logistics with the world's busiest airport. I believe we can mimic those numbers if we try. We have projections, just going off, like we said, these other neighboring cities and counties and what they look like. we can almost project what we can make easily. We can make short-term, 0 to 2 years. We can make $1 million with, things on the forefront in the near future that we have lined up. Midterm, 3 to 5 years, we could, project to make $8 million. And long-term, 6+ years, we could make about $12 million with job creation, infrastructure improvements with, existing assets that we have. We can, build on top of those and even look into building new ones. Economic growth, healthy communities, and we have over 140 sports and recreation assets that I've got with Troy Hodges from Parks and Rec, and that's just for county assets alone. We still have the public school system. We have Clayton State. We have privately owned organizations like a new one I just found out about. It's a volleyball organization. They have about 10 courts with 50,000 square feet of empty space for volleyball tournaments to play year round. And they was in Old Dixie. They just relocated to Jonesboro Road, right near Jonesboro High School. So that's something else that we can, take advantage of.
And so I'll jump in here and say, I was a bit surprised to learn that we had so many assets in the community. But you heard Brandon mention our school district, our municipalities, and of course, private facilities. So we convened a small group back in October from each of these areas, representing all of the areas that I just outlined, just to hear from them about their interest in the formation of a sports coalition or going after sporting tournaments. And there's a healthy appetite for it. But as you know, there's already some activity around it. So Clayton County Public Schools, as you've heard, they are erecting a 9-hole executive golf course. North Clayton, we also have the Convocation Center or arena that's online or coming online over the next year. And then, of course, other assets that they have. That they are now looking to hire a consultant to market just their facilities alone, of course. But they've said, hang on just a minute. We'll also be willing to partner with that coalition so that we can market our community as a whole. Now, you can go out right now on a website with Clayton County Public Schools and rent any facility of theirs that you want. You can have access to any of their facilities. So I think that's forward thinking. They've already started, but you go farther with more people and more voices collectively. So I'm very excited to hear that our community is looking forward to opportunities and already putting plans into place. And one other group that I didn't mention that we did talk to, and that was tourism. So you're probably asking, like, gee, if this is sports tourism or tourism related, how have you brought in our local tourism partners? Well, they were at the table as well. We connected with them right away. In fact, Ms. Patrick shared with me some of the history of the Sports Council formation here in Clayton County. And, pretty much said, hey, look, this is a great opportunity for us to get it right. And, once we structure it up the way we need to, definitely let's make sure that we've got the right partners all at the table together. So they are certainly willing and ready to get in with us on this because it affects everyone. It's going to be a global story for us to tell. So talk a little bit about the targeted sports and why, and then levels of play. Why did we go after these specific ones?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Tennis, first and foremost, tennis, we have a great facility existing already, which we can build on in tennis. So I think that's a major opportunity right there. Soccer, we all know FIFA is coming here real soon. So I think it'd be beneficial, very beneficial for us to take advantage of that as well. Golf, we see what North Clayton is going to do with their golf in their public school system with that. Basketball, that's pretty much here to stay. We all know that. Softball is a great opportunity to capitalize on. There are a lot of women out here that play softball in this county, and we have amazing, great athletes out here. Pickleball, that's one of the up-and-coming sports that is taking over the nation. And, it wouldn't be right if we weren't going to be a part of that. So I think pickleball is something that we should focus on. Lacrosse, same thing for lacrosse. Volleyball, like I said before, we have a new volleyball site that can host these type of tournaments already. So that's amazing. Esports, anybody's in the e-gaming, I think we should definitely capitalize on that as well because everything's digital, including sports these days. Levels of play would include AAU for year-round, D1, SWAC, MEAC, D2, SAIC, Peach Belt, NAIA, JUCO, and high school.
All right, and then lastly, just to kind of give you a snapshot, of course, this is not, in stone. This is all projected here, but, the initial goals and objectives of a sports coalition is the formation. You start with your infrastructure. And so we are in process now of researching various infrastructures and models that are out there. And I'll tell you, there are a couple of different models that are formed. One thing that's universal, though, is it involves public and private commitment. So you've got to have both sides at the table. So that's why you'll find a lot of these are connected to a chamber of commerce simply because they'll bring private stakeholders to the table, as well as, of course, the relationships from our public sector partners. And then, of course, launching the pilot sports programs. And then, of course, obviously, it's a coalition made up of identified individuals from various levels. So you're thinking of it as almost like a board, is the way that you would look at a coalition or sports council. They're a board, essentially. Now, you would have, 1 to 2 staff persons that are doing administrative work for them, but also going out and helping to generate revenue. And so we've not quite made it that far yet. However, certainly working through the formation and what that will look like. Again, that will, of course, take revenue generation as well to make it sustainable. The development of partnerships with local schools, which I talked about, we've already started talking to the school district. They love this idea and are essentially just waiting on the green light. And then other community organizations. And then, of course, the anticipated impact of the 1 million that Brandon talked about in the first couple of years. And then that middle to long-term range, that state-of-the-art facility, some of the sports that he outlined, the targeted sports, we really need like a megaplex that we just don't have. And quite frankly, the nearest megaplex, I think, would be like North Georgia, somewhere you mentioned.
Maybe, I forgot the city, but I think it's called Lake Point Sports or something like that, maybe an hour and a half away, north of Atlanta. Yeah, but definitely we need a megaplex, a complex, a sportsplex. Working with economic development the past few years, I'm realizing that we have the space, we have the need, we have the people here to do something like this. This is something like a dream of mine, the facility, but we have to start somewhere. And I think structuring an organization like a coalition, a sports coalition, is somewhere where we need to start.
Well, and in terms of long-term sustainability, and I mean, again, that's that 6+ time frame. I mean, depending on the revenue generation would kind of dictate, the ability to establish an investment policy and management and plan so that you can create an endowment that could help with scholarships and education and access. In our community, I think it's about a whole lot more than just going out and playing sports. It's about exposing our students and our community to what's out there and the opportunities that are there for you to build a career or for you to have a better quality of life. And so for us at the Chamber, that's certainly where our interests lie. So this aligns nicely with our overarching mission. And then, of course, implementing a comprehensive sports education program in collaboration with schools and promoting skills and development. That's exactly what I'm talking about in terms of the education piece and the access. So that wraps up our presentation. Thank you so much for your ear today. Do you have any questions for us related to the Sports Coalition?
All right, any questions from the board?
It's really not a question, but there are some things that we are working on. Is that correct, COO and DCOO? Are you all talking or? And good to see you, Mr. COO.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hambrick is talking specifically about, and we had the conversation with Commissioner Davis. Primarily, this board has already passed Game Changers. Game Changers was the group that came in and talked about taking inventory of our athletic complexes and trying to figure out how do we develop these relationships as it pertains to either a coalition or developing some means for which we can have this whole economic development component within space. We see the value in having some coalition between the two. So if Game Changers came in and provided kind of an overview of looking at all of our inventory and serving as a consultant potentially with the Sports Coalition, because they have a level of expertise that we may not have, then it can work in conjunction with the coalition to make that work. So yes, ma'am, we've had some conversations with Valencia and Brandon and the team and Commissioner Davis about what the opportunities could be in front of us. And then also we talked about there being some opportunities. How do we segue some of our recreational opportunities in space and now turn that into more of a heightened competitive opportunity? Because again, as Valencia alluded to, it's about exposure and giving them other opportunities at different levels they may not have through our parks and recreation experience.
Any other questions?
I have one question. What school did you go to?
Forest Park.
Okay, and what school did you play for?
Forest Park High School and Bruton Parker College.
Okay,
Bruton Park is Vidalia, Georgia.
okay.
Because I wasn't exposed to the right,
That's
medias.
wonderful. You didn't say what one of our people come up there wearing, that old, Seminole, so we're good.
I want to say something to that, though. That's a really good point, even though you probably didn't realize that you were making a point about something. One thing that we heard, Commissioner Davis and I went and talked to some folks over at Clayton County Public Schools, was that we lose a lot of our students
We do.
to other neighboring counties and communities that, have, I guess, better facilities. And yes, and higher quality of play, and there's lots of competition. They want to go play with their friends. And so we essentially are a training ground in Clayton County for great athletes. And then right when they hit high school, they end up going somewhere else. So we're creating, championship caliber students and talent, but then they take it off somewhere else. And I think the school district attributed it to the quality of their facilities, which is why they're working so hard to upgrade. So I say, yeah, let's go. Let's
I'm
do
glad
that.
you said that, because let me share this with you, and I'm just kidding. Let me make sure people know that.
There's no problem.
But although I am not as versed in the sports world, now that my girls have started running track, but the one thing I can share with you is that's a little gut-wrenching to hear that, because at the end of the day, we need to understand as citizens, the responsibility of keeping up our facilities is the head of operations. That's the bottom line. And as a commissioner, I have witnesses in this room that I've had to go over to every one of the facilities and take note as a part-time commissioner and have those things upgraded. At the Jim Huey Recreation Center, we honor one of the managers there, where we have the one and only Olympic-sized pool next to Georgia Tech. So we do need to add swimming on here, because that facility serves not only Clayton, but it serves Henry and Fayette. Fayette and Henry do not have that size pool. But if we manage it properly, we don't have the issue of parts breaking down and then we're having to spend more money to get it up and running on a temporary basis to serve these three counties if we were managing it properly. So I do agree with you, but I also think this is an opportunity to definitely, give kudos where kudos are due. And I want to say that Jessica, who unfortunately received a kind of a pat on the hand for taking it upon herself to paint her own gym area because of what you just said. It took her getting in that space for that facility to finally get up to the part that it should be, and finally citizens stopped complaining about it. So I'm sharing that with you, but also to a certain extent, I do know that some of our facilities are second to none. So I'm glad to hear that. What I do ask is that instead of reinventing the wheel, is that we have better communication with, not on you all, but on our side. Sorry, there's water. Better communication on our side, because if we have to hear that we passed the Game Changers and we have them involved, but then again, you all are working on another initiative, think how far we could go if we would have been having conversations in the beginning. And then on top of that, we already have a board. We have a board for our parks and recreation. And I think it's imperative that we know exactly how much revenue we're bringing in first, and have that in this presentation, and then we can build upon it. So that's what I personally ask. I see Troy Stubbs out there, who's the son of Mr. Stubbs and Miss Stubbs. He has a lot of institutional knowledge. If we can make that happen, I think we can fly.
Well, and I'll say this, Troy, we engaged him right out of the gate, and he's been great to work
Good.
with, absolutely. So
Good to hear that.
before I go, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't have Commissioner Davis say a few words, since this is
The
his
facilities that they're speaking of is keeping up is one point. the reason I came up with the idea was to spur economic impact, meaning how do we begin to drive to get hotels, to get restaurants, to get other facilities here? If you begin to look at every small city in America that has a large-scale institution, that sports is what drove the economy there. The last point you made on the volleyball, that is a high school volleyball tournament in Orlando, Florida, over 7 days. That brings in that city over $200 million in that week. That is the reason of this. We understand the purpose of Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec deals with local community, youth, and other programs and adult programs. This is to begin to bring in other programs that are going to do. So my ask really is for, well, not me, really my ask, but for every dollar that we invest in a program like this, of a coalition, my thought is over the next 5 to 7 years, we can reap between $20 and $25 off every dollar invested. That's what I want to see for the county. This is an economic plan, an economic stimulus plan that can carry us forward for many years to come. And we can begin to create it immediately.
That's a great point, Commissioner. But let me tell you this. At the end of the day, when we're looking at pie in the sky, that's great. And one thing that I have watched you do as a graduate from FAMU, is you pay attention to the specifics. What we cannot do is constantly bring a new idea and a new idea when we have not perfected our process for anyone to bring business into this county. As a part-time commissioner, when I'm having to take on developers who are coming in to do just what you all are talking about doing, bringing the economic engine so that we can have those hotels, but then their projects get stopped without having any type of reasoning or regulatory reasoning that is substantiated, then let me tell you what I hear from 5 developers, and I heard it over the last 2 weeks, and it's documented in email. We're considering if we're going to continue to do any business with Clayton County. We have to get our operations together. We can't keep talking. Ideas are great. I love ideas. I'm a creative, love to be creative. But until we get our basics together and get it to the point to where people are not spending hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars just to go through a process and have 1 or 2 people to say, hey, you know what, I've changed my mind. You're not going to get business, whether it's with the chamber, whether it's with you. What we're going to keep doing is doing the same thing, expecting different results, and continue to have leaders who come up with grand ideas, but not realizing that it takes getting the principles, the basics in order, and then we can build on it. And for those that don't understand that, for those that may read the Bible, it says, if the foundations be destroyed, what can we do? You can work and have all the great ideas in the world. And this is several multi-million-dollar projects. Until we change that, we're just adding more and more and more, and we're not using our resources respectfully and effectively.
Well, Commissioner Franklin, let me say this also. I would love to hear from some of those developers because I have yet to hear from any of them. So if you would, just share my information with them so they can contact me as well, so we are knowledgeable about what you are seeing and experiencing.
Glad you said that. Mr. Reed has the copy, so does DCOO, and the companies are Brad Hughes with Rockhaven Homes, who has been reported for the EPD for something that we're responsible for doing, as well as Sunrise Builders. I can go through a list. It's time to move forward.
And with the,
so
in the
they have
interest
the
of time,
information.
in the interest of time, yes, if I'll get the list from them. But thank you both for your presentation, and we do look forward to this getting the formation of it and done the right way. And I appreciate Commissioner Davis' passion for this to bring economic development. And I truly believe, I'll be remiss if I did not say, all of the good work that school system is putting into renovating and upgrading their facilities, their sporting facilities, because instead of our students leaving, other students are going to be coming to Clayton County. And that's something that we're going to be very blessed to have. Thank you both. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Take care. Thank you.
Proposed misdemeanor mental health court implementation. Chief Judge Keisha Wright Hill and Judge Latrivia Cates Johnson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How do I do this? Just got you. All right. Good afternoon, esteemed board. I am presiding judge, Cates Johnson. I've come before you for a very important concern as a judge, as a citizen of this county. I am proposing a Clayton County mental health court. This is not something that can happen, that should happen, but this is something that must happen. I've heard a lot earlier about investing in this community, where I think that to do that, you have to also invest in the citizens in your community.
Please talk in the mic, please.
Oh, sorry, okay. So there is great concern for the number of mental health individuals coming into our jail. I see it, we see it, all of the judges in magistrate court see it every day. Our jail has become a shelter. Our airport is one of the largest airports in the nation. Because of that, because half of that location is part Clayton County, we get all of the arrests. We get all the criminal acts. And it is overwhelming our jail. We have got to do something, and we have got to do it now. we have put together a mental health court program, a proposed solution. We don't have anything right now, but I believe that this proposed solution that I put together, and it was based on another model program. So before I get into it, and while you're listening, I would like you to, can I get this to the?
Give it to the officer.
Oh, okay. I would like for you guys to read that. That was from Judge Strad in DeKalb County. They have a model misdemeanor mental health court program. And I have met with her countless times. We've gone to her office. She's done PowerPoint. She has been very instrumental in putting this program together. Also, Fulton County, Judge Kirk has been extremely helpful. They also have a model misdemeanor mental health court. And so if you would look at the email from Judge Stroud, and just a couple of things, I'm not going to read it, but I would like for you to pay attention to. And so all of our missions are consistent with what Judge Stroud indicated, that our intent when it comes to mentally ill is not to criminalize, is to get them some help, as opposed to incarcerating them. I'm not going to go into the specifics, but a few of our murders in the jail has been from mentally ill individuals that were there on minor charges. So what happens is these individuals, they go to jail for being at the airport, for acting out at home, smacking their mom, whatever it is. They'll come there on a misdemeanor, but because of the length of stay, and because of their mental illness, they end up catching additional charges. So now we've gone to misdemeanor, and now we're up now to felony, because the jail is not equipped to take care of them, to service them. They don't have the resources. They simply don't. And so on a daily basis, it is heart-wrenching to see all of these people, our people, that come before us just begging for help. They literally say, I had one yesterday who literally said, my probation officer, I told her I need my medicine. I told her I'm homeless because I could no longer afford where I was. She went ahead and violated me, and now I'm in jail. And so constantly hearing this outpour of a population of people that 90% of the time, their mental illness is not due to something they've done. It could be from trauma, it could be hereditary, but whatever it is, putting them in jail is not the answer. And so, and because of their mental condition, they're isolated from everybody else. Can you imagine what that would do to somebody already struggling mentally? It is causing severe problems. It is overwhelming our dockets. It is overwhelming our prosecutors. It is overwhelming our judges. It is overwhelming everything. The jail, everything. We have got to do something about this, because our people going into the jail just for a simple, let's just say marijuana less than an ounce, or driving on suspended license, they're going in there and they get exposed to these people and they're getting hurt. And they're there for something so minor. So it's something that magistrate court felt like we have to address. So we've come up with a program with the help of the 2 model programs that is from both DeKalb and Fulton County. So also, let me say before I go any further, I've gone to great lengths to make sure that what we are asking for, that we are using community-based resources. Meaning, Dr. Adams, he and I have talked quite a bit. We've actually come up with a structure as to how we're going to play this out. And so in doing so, the judges are going to be the pre-screeners. So basically, and most of the time, 90% of the time when they come before you, there are some mental challenges there. And so at that point, we will have our intake person go through the assessment. We'll have to go to the solicitor's office and make sure they're okay with this particular individual, because we have to look at a few things. Not everybody is going to be eligible for this program. Let's just start there. Even if it's a misdemeanor, if you have several DUIs, you're not going to be eligible. If you have sex offenses, you're not going to be eligible. Not for this misdemeanor court program. So not everybody is eligible. But once we do find that they're eligible, then we send them over to Clayton Center. Clayton Center is going to do the evaluation, going to do an assessment, going to do a treatment plan, and then they're going to come bring it back to us and say, hey, I think we can help this person. No, we don't have the resources. We have collaborated a team from what CJ indicated we must have, and you will see that on the presentation in just a moment. And so once we do that, our team will then get with the defense attorney, who will go over everything with the defendant. If that defendant is willing to participate, this is a voluntary program. So if that participant says, nah, I don't want to do it, then they continue on their path. If they say, yes, I've been looking for this, I need this, and they show a commitment, to healing, then at that point, they will start in our program. The program is a 4-phase program in which you have to do certain things in order to graduate to go to the next level. We will be meeting on a weekly basis. The team will be meeting on a weekly basis, and we will talk and discuss each and every person that we have on our agenda. We will talk about what resources they need. We will talk about what resources they don't, if it's substance abuse. We have already partnered with the probation office, who has said, yes, we will take those people, we will monitor them. They will be handling the probation part of it. And so they will have to report to probation once a week, and they will also have to report to court once a week. And so as the program goes on, as it gets into the 4th phase, that's a hallelujah phase. If you look at Judge Stroud, she indicated so far they've had over 600 people to graduate. She is the biggest cheerleader for this program, and she has been extremely instrumental. Also, I've spoken with all but one state court judge that I just hadn't had a chance to speak with, but everybody is on board. Everybody is just excited about it. We need help. We need resources for these individuals, and so everybody seems to be collaborating. Judge Garrett did send an email, and I get that to you, saying that we desperately need this. He supports the plan. He supports the program. And this is not something that, I know we're not asking, this is not a proposal of, I know, economic development. This is not a proposal of starting a business or waste management, but this is an outcry for help, for humans, for our community. Now, I understand that there was some talk that the airport had a program that they were not bringing over the individuals that were arrested at the airport. That is not true. Today on my calendar, over half my calendar was people arrested at the airport.
Wow.
And so now with the new announcement that they are closing the doors 24 hours, I can't imagine what it's about to look like now. The jail has a capacity, 1536, I believe it is. We are close to 2,000. These people are sitting on top of each other. They are sleeping on top of each other. But we can help alleviate that with this program because we are getting them out of the jail and getting them some resources. And oftentimes, yes, they are homeless, but the homeless people, a lot, what I'm learning, as I've dug deep into some of the arrestees, is that their family has put them out because they don't know how to deal with the mental illness. They don't know how to get the help for their loved ones. And so what they do, they come up to magistrate court and they attempt to evict them. They don't know what else to do. I have on a daily basis, parents, siblings, and they're calling about their loved ones and they're saying, listen, yes, I did call the police. Yes, he did do all these things, but he needs help. We don't have it, but we need it. And we gotta have it now. Okay, so can I get started? Okay, so pathway to healing, one phase at a time. I thought it was pretty good. So I thought this was interesting. I found where Tasha Mosley said, we are drowning in mental health criminal cases. This is not an issue, this is a crisis. It really is. And I just put one of the samples up there. He placed a knife against the victim's neck, placing her in fear of receiving serious bodily injury on the bus. This is an airport case. You guys, you have the pamphlet, so you'll be able to better read these. But these are just some of the airport and other cases, not just airport. It's not all the airport. I don't want to put it all on airport, but airport does play a significant role in the overcrowding of the Clayton County Jail. And so here you hear I said a call for action, but here these people are crying for help. They really are. And so I think that we as leaders and in the position that we are in, we have the ability to make their lives better. And so this will be a highly structured alternative to incarceration program that involves community intensive treatment, services, support services, education, and again, intensive supervision. The goal is to reduce the number of people in our jail, therefore promoting safety in our community, improving the
You can talk into the mic,
improving,
then everybody can hear what you're saying.
And so the goal is to reduce recidivism, reduce the number of people being arrested, and to improve the quality of life that these participants and their families need. And so what happens is, and I actually tried this, I had 4 individuals that I knew were mentally ill. All 4 of these, 3 were airport, 1 was not, and I let them go on a UJR. All 4 of them was back that week. All 4 of them was rearrested. So we let them out, and they come right back in because they have no resources. And so on a daily basis, when you're getting, and I am being very, I'm not lying, I'm not making this up, but when you're on the bench and you deal with on a daily basis, you stink, bitch, what do you want? And it's not because, and we don't take it personally, because we know it's a mental illness. Telling me that their name is something totally different, getting naked in jail when it's time to see the judge. I cannot begin to tell you the number of stories that happens that we see. There is no cost to the participant to participate in this program. So the team would be the magistrate court judge, a program coordinator. The program coordinator has to be a full-time person. That's the only person that has to be a full-time employee. Of course, the prosecution, the public defender, probation, of course, our certified mental health providers, surveillance officers, which is going to be key. And those individuals will go from the sheriff's office, and they'll go out and do checks on these individuals while they're in the program. So that's why we call them surveillance. They'll do surveillance on them. And then community service partners that we talked about, Clayton Center as well. So we want to focus on healing. We want to focus on treatment. And so we have to do that quickly. And so the ideal is that you have to rapidly identify, assess, and put people in treatment. Now, we are getting an overwhelming number of teenagers, 17, 18, 19-year-olds that are homeless. And so they've either ran away from home, whatever it is, they can't deal with their mental situation, and neither can their families. And so getting them into programs quickly will make a world of difference in these people's lives. And again, unfortunately, in their state, they are victimizing our citizens, their families. They are destroying businesses. They are disrupting businesses. They're going into businesses, they're eating, and we had somebody just went in and punched one of the cashiers. Just no reason. And so, but this is the type of behaviors that we have got to get them into this program so we can help them make better decisions and choices. So these are the requirements: 17 years of age. You must have a misdemeanor case pending. You have to show signs of mental illness or be diagnosed previously, and you must be competent to stand trial, of course, because you have to be able to understand what you're doing with the program. No sex offense charges, no DUIs, and no felony charges are accepted. And so we talked about this earlier. This is just the process. You become eligible, then you get your assessment, you get your treatment plan, your participation begins, and then Yahoo, you graduate. And we have now a law-abiding, productive citizen, as opposed to what we had prior to this 12-month period. All right, so the phases are, the first one is the orientation and treatment development phase. So you're kind of just getting all the medical records. They have to go in and watch one of the classes. One of our court sessions. They have to get their evaluation. They have to make sure that they understand what they are supposed to be doing, all that good stuff. They get an outline. They get a public defender at that time. And the public defender's office sent a letter, but it was way too long, and it was an outcry, but we'll give you guys a copy of that as well. And so phase 2 is stabilization. So they'll spend 120 days here. And this is where the bulk of their recovery and resources are coming in, is at phase 2. And then phase 3 is a community transition. At this point now, we're trying to find them some jobs, some making sure they have housing. If they want to go back to school, we want to give them some educational assistance, those sort of things. That's where that happens at. And then phase 4, and also all of it, 1, 2, and 3, they all have curfews. And so it's a progressive curfew. Phase 1 curfew is at 7, phase 2 is at 8, phase 3 is at 9 o'clock, and phase 4, no curfew at all. And so, again, we're just trying to get everybody, we would just be trying to get everybody to stage 4. These are the services that will be offered, and most of them are through Clayton Center. And so, because I want to say the name right. Crystal Perry, Melanated Pearl, has also partnered with us, and she will be providing certain things such as hygiene kits, clothing if necessary. She does have access to some housing if we need it. And so we've gone through into great lengths to make sure that this program will work. I know earlier Ms. Franklin said something about you got to get the basics in order. And so the basics are in order here. Okay? We started from the bottom, and now we're here. And so if you're still not sold, I wanted you to look at some stats. So to house a mentally ill inmate with treatment, medication, so forth, we're talking $120 per day. Now, I was being moderate when I said 15 inmates per day are on first appearance. Yesterday it was 20. And so I've had 18. It fluctuates, but I would say at minimum 15 inmates. And so if we did that times the number, if we did 15 inmates times the number per day, it is costing taxpayers $16 million. This $16 million, yes, per month, yes. So at 15 inmates per day, that is 450 inmates per month. Times $120, which is a cost per day, that's $54,000 a month. We can't afford not to do this. The definition of insanity, again, is doing the same thing, expecting different results. So we have done a budget, but the budget that we're requesting is something very small in that we are asking only for the implementation process. We have identified at least 6 other grants and their deadlines, and we will be presenting and submitting for each one of those grants. So I anticipate that we will get funding from other sources. And so the yearly exposure, $19 million per year. And so these are the grants that we're looking at that we will be applying for. And we're also going to be forming a nonprofit organization, and DeKalb County has, both DeKalb and Fulton have this. And basically, that nonprofit does a lot of fundraising. And so a part of this process is not only, resources for helping them, but we also need resources for outlets for them. When they do well, we need to make sure that we are telling them, we are showing them that they're doing well. And so that nonprofit is going to help us get the monies we need to give to them when we are proud of our individuals and how hard they're working. All right, and so again, we've only asked for $150 for the first year and $150 for the second year, and that is based on the relationship that we will have with Dr. Adams and Clayton Center, and so I think that is a small investment for a huge problem. And so we ask for this opportunity to make a difference here in Clayton County. magistrate court, we are very serious about our citizens. We are very serious about helping our citizens, and this is something that just really needs to happen. That's it. Any questions?
All right, questions.
Just quickly,
Okay.
yeah, what does graduation mean? Do they go back to jail, or do you
No.
get out?
Good question. No, so when they, so
I mean,
basically.
are they cured? Whatever the mental.
Well, I hope so. That would be, I mean, but when you're dealing with mental illness, that goes on. That, yeah, recovery is everlasting. But what we offer is, once you complete the program, those charges are dismissed.
Oh, okay, so you still may
Right, and so if you're
get
accepted,
back into society.
right, and so
But
at
they
that
have
point,
the
you're
tools.
kind of self-sustaining at that point.
But what I'm hearing is they'll have the tools to better cope with the
Exactly.
situation.
Exactly. And most of them, again, are not homeless. They just can't go back to that home. And so if we can work with the family counseling, and I believe that can open up a lot of doors for our homeless children, is to get them back into their homes.
So you have psychiatrists and psychologists and
Yes,
all that?
yes,
That would,
Yes, that would be.
That's where Dr. Adams falls in.
yes.
Your Honor, I have a question.
Yes.
You said, real quick, the answer to that question was so that you can get the children back into the home, but I thought your program starts at 17. How does that correlate?
When you say the children.
You said so we can get our homeless children back in their homes.
Oh, for me, 17-year-olds, they're children.
Okay, that's what I wanted, I understand, but we need to,
I understand.
because
Yes.
that pivots a
Allow
little
me
bit than what
to
was.
clarify, yes.
Okay.
When I'm saying that, I mean our young, 21, 22,
Okay,
I call them our children.
Okay.
When a person is taken in, how soon before they are assessed?
So what happens is when they get on first appearance, which is the next day,
Okay.
the judge will give a list of those that we feel like are mentally challenged or have some mental disabilities. And at that point, we'll take a look at a number of things. We will get with the solicitor's office and we'll say, hey, we have these individuals potentially to come into the program. If you could take a look at their background and determine if they are legally eligible. So then, once we do that, and that's a 24-hour
Okay.
turnaround is
That's
what
what-
we're
that's what
hoping.
I'm looking
Yes, and so then we sent a referral, goes over to Clayton Center, and then Clayton Center actually sets up the deputy to come to the jail, pick the inmate up, and bring them to where he is,
Okay.
where the psychiatry or the counseling or the assessment will happen.
Okay.
And so once that happens, and then they'll bring them back, and then they'll generate a report, a treatment plan, and then the team will meet and say, okay, I think this is a good candidate, and we'll come up with a plan.
Great.
all right,
Also,
Mr.
too,
Chair, I'm sorry.
Not finished.
ACCG Board of Managers have gotten with the governor, and I know we passed a resolution, Clayton County did, I believe in either December or January. All 159 counties have now signed a pledge urging the governor to begin to fund mental health. So that is a great thing for our state, not just our county, and I believe we need to begin to start going after those funds as well.
Yes, absolutely.
I see Commissioner Brooks, did you have something that you wanted to?
That's Solicitor
Sir.
Brooks. You called him
Oh,
Commissioner, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to, but before we get there, come on up, Solicitor.
Hey, hold on a second. I called him up. Go ahead and eject.
Well, thank you for having me up here. I completely and wholeheartedly believe that we do need a misdemeanor mental health court. However, I do have to add this caveat. There are certain things that we have to think about before we move forward. And so I think one of the things that has to happen, all of the stakeholders have to be at the table so that we can discuss the nuts and bolts of it. And so without going further about budgeting and the nuance of setting up a program, I'm asking if the commission would consider putting a pause on the conversation so that we can all be at the table to talk about what it actually looks like before we move forward with budgeting.
Commissioner, hold on a second. Commissioner Franklin.
Actually, you've already spoken, and to be quite honest with you, I think that I do agree that you all would be nice to get together to figure out the best way to move forward. One of the things I am going to say is this is the very reason that I raised the question of how the total of about $9 million that we spent with a institution that we do not own, Prime Healthcare, because it was brought to our attention that they were going to tackle this problem of mental health. That was specifically stated in several of the meetings. And I see Doctor looking back. You know what the beautiful thing about board meetings, they're recorded. So I will look for that meeting and send it to you, sir. But that is my concern. Again, as you all say, you see the issues, you see the problem. But what we do is we throw out what we conceive as a solution. But how often do we go back to find out through the end users if it's really working?
It's absolutely necessary.
Speaking to the mic for me.
Yes, sir. A large majority of the cases that come into state court for for mental health come from the airport. But there are conversations that we can have to bring the airport at the table. I have a good relationship with Vivica Brown, who's over the aviation department over at the airport. I know that they have set up programs for the homeless population, but again, we all just need to be in the same room at the same time before we actually move forward budgeting wise. Because I think, honestly, if I'm being 100% transparent, I don't think 150,000 would be enough. Quite
I
frankly.
agree.
But we just need to be in the room to get the conversation started.
Right. So I agree. It comes back to prioritizing what's the purpose of government, number one.
Right.
What is our responsibility? Do we handle it in-house, or do we continue to give it to others, hoping they use it for the right reason? But every other day we're seeing on the news about somebody being dropped off or somebody being left out. The truth is the truth. What's happening is really happening. So I believe that as we discussed about a coalition for Parks and Rec, I love it, but we got to get to the basics. What this board is required, every board is required to do, is to provide health care and addressing mental health. And we need a coalition for that purpose. Because if we had that coalition up and running and it would have been explained properly to this board, then I would hope that the citizens would hold those who sit in these seats responsible to say that we've used that $9 million properly, so that we won't keep coming out here just so we can hear ourselves say, well, one day we're going to do something about the homeless. Well, one day we're going to do something about the homeless. But then again, we're looking at the sheriff's office being over budgeted. We're looking at you all over at the court system being over budgeted. It's our responsibility to make sure those funds are used properly and they're getting to where they need to be to deal with our first reason that we sit on this board. So I propose that we look at a coalition to deal with mental health, as you all stated, to bring everybody to the table. Because when we have Doc behind you constantly trying to figure out how to make it happen, it's very difficult. But when we're stronger together, now we can have our lobbyists go off and get even more funding. Now, with signing that documentation at the state office, now we have more folks that can go and advocate for the fact that Clayton County is handling the brunt of it. As long as we remain stagnated and then segregated in our work and in our mission, we will keep doing just what you said, Judge, doing the same thing, expecting different results, which is the definition of insanity. And I don't think our folks elected us to do that.
No. And so I welcome, I know that this was a work session, and so, but we got to start somewhere.
I agree.
And so now I welcome the coming to the table. I would like it done, see it done sooner than later, because every day we're missing some lives that we could touch.
Just make sure you spearhead that initiative or that effort and just bring those stakeholders to the table that you feel like needs to be at the table, and we'll have further discussions. Thank you for your presentation, and we'll be talking soon.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And thank you, Judge Raheel, as well.
Thank you, Doc. Land Review Committee, status update.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board. We'll be brief in our presentation. So I did just want to come before you with Director Vasquez and give you an update on the Land Review Committee and the work that we've been doing. So if you recall, back in August 15th, the board approved via Resolution 2023-186 the Land Review Committee, and the purpose was to try and streamline the litany of requests we get to either accept donations of land, purchase land, and then, of course, try to start the process of going through the land bank and determining what is usable land and what is not usable land. After that resolution was passed, we did convene that. You can kind of see all of the participants that are a part of that Office of Resilience and Sustainability, which kind of serves as the head of that committee and keeps it driving and keeps it going. Extension is there, economic development, tax assessors, T&D, building and maintenance, community development, legal and finance, central services, parks and rec, fire and police, and we've kind of broken them down into the areas of expertise that they would bring as we start to do an analysis of any given parcel of land and its potential viability or use to the county. Our primary objectives is to review and assess potential land acquisition or purchasing prospects, identify and understand threats and hazards associated with the prospective land, utilize GIS tools to enhance decision-making processes, develop an analysis tool with grading metrics to ensure thorough vetting of land acquisitions, and then, of course, improve overall land acquisition processes and outcomes for the county. So our goal is to get to a defined process, so as these things come in, we can make recommendations to the board that set the county up to be successful from an economic development standpoint, and we're just not onboarding land that is either within the floodplain or has no usable value to the county. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Director Vasquez, and he will take you from here.
Thank you, Chief, Chairman, Vice Chair, board members. Next slide, please. So the issue that was brought about was the non-viability of county-owned parcels, and there was a meeting with the tax assessor's office and the land bank that revealed two big questions. The county owns parcels that have been deemed not viable for the county use and do not serve county functions, and the county owns a quote-unquote patchwork of parcels, decreasing the ability to create larger buildable sets of land or offload a group of parcels to potential buyers. So with that, the Land Review Committee was formed through the resolution. Next slide, please. So this is just a snapshot of what we have in the county now. The Clayton County Land Bank owned parcels, 682. It's broken down by district, as you see there. 42% of that, those parcels are owned by the land bank, have potential use for the county. And we will kind of get into a few examples of ones that are viable and not viable in the next couple slides. And these are basically what you're going to see next are examples of what the Land Review Committee is going to be looking at. Next slide, please. So the first one is this parcel, which is in the Sapphire Creek subdivision. This parcel amongst is a residential subdivision. It's not viable for county use. So the solution would be to transfer the property. One solution could be to transfer the property to the subdivision via quitclaim deed. So this, as you see, it's basically just a strip of land in between a number of houses that was acquired. What is next? Next slide, please. The next one you see is a parcel that's by itself is not viable. However, if you couple some of these parcels together, they could be a selling point to somebody who may want to build another house right there in that neighborhood. Next parcel, please. All right, so non-buildable versus non-viable. What you're looking at here is you're looking at a snapshot of some county-owned parcels that are in the floodplain. So with that is we are also working, my office is working to get the county standing in partnership and get us on the community rating system, the CRS. And what the CRS is going to do is going to allow us to get a discount for homeowners who are trying to get the flood insurance. So that CRS can possibly get homeowners 40% off homeowners insurance. I mean, not homeowners insurance, my apologies, flood insurance. So with this, as you see that there is some land in the floodplain, just because it's in the floodplain doesn't mean it's bad. In the CRS, you want to have some green space. So turning that into green space and recreational property is still good. Even though we cannot build a structure, doesn't mean that it's not viable for the county. It will help us on the other side with our CRS standing. And again, these are just examples to show what the LRC is going to be looking for, and making those recommendations for the board to consider moving forward. Next slide, please. So with that, we have the parcels that the land bank already owns, but then if there is somebody who wants to submit for consideration a piece of land, they can go on the Clayton County website under the Office of Resilience and Sustainability, and there is a new land review submission form. This is basically what it looks like. It is a very quick and easy form for them to put in all the information. At that point, it will come via email to my office, and we will then get the land review committee together and then start looking at this piece of property. Next slide, please. This is just a snapshot of what the dashboard is going to look like. As you see, we have it broken down by parcels. So every case that's brought, what the zoning for that particular land is, submission status, so whether it has been put in progress, whether all the reports have been submitted by every committee member, have we denied it, or have we recommended it to the BOC for potential approval. We're going to calculate the total proposed sale price of all submissions, just for tracking and how many we get a month, and we can track anything we would deem necessary for your consideration. Next slide, please. This is again software we already have, Monday.com, that we're going to use for the committee members to submit their reports. It's just a way to track it, so then we are not missing anything, and we get all the reports from all the committee members to make sure that we have a great 360 approach, and we're taking everything into consideration before it comes before you. Next slide. This is just the email that we've created, lrc@claytoncountyga.gov. That's how it would be submitted to the committee, so we can start that process. Next slide. And one of the things that we're just going to consider as the committee is how should the framework for the county land acquisition encompass the will of the board. So at the end of the day, we are here to provide recommendations to the board and seeing how we are to move forward. And with that, we are open to any questions.
All right, any questions?
Great presentation, and I'm glad we have a process that is measurable and quantitative. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for your presentation, sir, and keep up the good work.
Yes, sir.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Revision of Resolution 2013-159, salary paid in lieu of compensation. I think that is Ms. Ambles. All right.
It's been a long time, seems like, board, since I have stood before you all. But good evening to my Board of Commissioners, and good evening to our Clayton County citizens. I would like to introduce you to Miss Angela Woods. I think a lot of you know Miss Angela. She is the HR Manager for Benefits Administration and Workers' Compensation. She is one of my experts, right-hand person, and she is here with me tonight. The first one we have is, I want to make two statements. First of all, if the board has any questions for me that I may not have thought of, if you'll give me the opportunity to get back with you all with the questions, there's no board action required tonight, being asked for tonight. But we do have this on the agenda for your consideration for vote at the next meeting, which is next week. Also, I want to say that you will see Resolution 2013-159, but it's actually Ordinance 2013-159. I also want to start by saying that legal, they are working with us to make sure that the language that will be placed in the ordinance matches what we're talking about here tonight. So what we're doing is we are requesting to revise ordinance 2014-159. This is salary paid in lieu of compensation. We're asking to eliminate the waiting period for specific classification and implementing a 12-week benefit period. Clayton County, I want to say this loud and clearly, Clayton County has a hidden gem when it comes to our workers' compensation program. We go well above and beyond what the law says that we have to do.
Excuse me, real quick, Mr. Chair, just for a point of clarity. Can you, Director Ambrose, can you give us what that rating period is that you're saying to abandon?
Yes,
It wasn't
ma'am.
given.
I'm gonna give it to you.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. It's coming. Go back here. When I refer to our hidden gem, the Georgia Workers' Compensation Law says that we have to pay our injured employees 2/3 of their average weekly wage. And that amount is even capped at $575 per week. Clayton County's salary paid in lieu pays 100% salary for almost 12 weeks, and this is an annual benefit. I thought that it would be helpful to the board to have a side-by-side comparison of the current versus what we are proposing. Police officers, currently there is no waiting period. Full-time civil service employees, there is a 12 or 18-month probationary period. Part-time, temporary, and seasonal employees, they are not eligible for the salary paid in lieu of comp, but they are eligible, of course, for the state workers' compensation program. What we are proposing is that classifications covered under our public safety insurance have no waiting period as well. So we want to eliminate the waiting period for these classifications that are covered under our public safety line of insurance. And let me speak on that real quickly. About 2 years ago, the Board of Commissioners, maybe 3 years ago, about 3 years ago, Angela, the Board of Commissioners, you all approved a public safety life insurance. And that offers our public safety people $10,000 extra insurance, no cost to them. We automatically enroll them in this, under this coverage that you all provided. We are asking, and we specify specific classifications. These classifications are ones that we looked at, and they are the ones that are actually putting their lives on the line each and every day from day one. And it's not only the police officers, it's not only the firefighters. We just heard a presentation on mental health. You have our juvenile court officers, our probation officers who are going out into people's homes telling them you're in violation, this is what you need to do, and so forth. So we have classifications from various departments that are under our public safety life insurance, and I'll share those departments with you in just a moment. All other full-time civil service protected employees, we're asking to keep the 12 or 18-month probationary period. Also, the part-time temporary, we are not asking for any changes there. They're not eligible for the salary paid in lieu, but once again, they are eligible for the state workers' comp program. There are, as I said earlier, proposed covered specific classifications that are under our public safety life insurance. And these classifications are found within the departments of the police, fire, EMS, sheriff, solicitor, DA, corrections, refuse, juvenile court, probation services, as well as our Office of Resiliency and Sustainability. The actuals, to make sure that there is no confusion and that is clear, I spoke with Staff Attorney India Mitchell today, and we talked about in the ordinance, we're going to list not only the departments, but we will list each classification that is covered so that there won't be any ambiguity there. The cost there is no additional funding being requested because the classifications compensation is already budgeted. So we're not asking for anything additional, but we do feel that these particular classifications, from day one, they put their lives on the line for Clayton County citizen, of which I'm one, and we wanted to, and I think this is a long time coming. This is something that I should have brought to the board a long time ago, but we're bringing it to you now for your consideration. Thank you.
All right, any questions from Ms. Ambles?
And
Yes.
let me ask my expert over here who handles this every day. Angela, did I miss anything? Did you have any other feedback? No. Okay. Okay, good. Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Frank.
First, I want to say thank you for your presentation, and thank you for bringing this before the board, because I believe this is, what, about 20 years in the making?
Long overdue.
Longer than that. So that's another one of those things that gets back to the basics of operations. But at any rate, I commend us on getting the 10,000, but we're still way behind. As you know, I've been working 20 years in the insurance industry doing employee benefits. So what I share with you is information that I see every year, 2 times a year. And I could tell you the city of McDonough offers every one of their law enforcement and public safety folks $200,000 a year. Most of the others offer them at minimum 2 to 3 times their salary. So we're way behind. So once again, we have to prioritize how we're spending our money in the county, and it's not so much on you all in your division, because those are board decisions. But when we're saying that we're having difficulties recruiting folks, people want to come work in Clayton County that are in that field, because those guys and those men and women are geared up for that type of action. And so they want to come here to work. But I have found too often, many folks have left us, and in fact, some of their wives and spouses have told them they had to leave because $10,000 ain't going to feed your child. $10,000 is not going to be able to cover the fees that you get from the hospital when you lose your life on a job. Specifically, what got me into the industry here in Clayton County was when we lost Officer Newland. Officer Newland's wife received a bill from the hospital upwards of $100,000. So to give these officers and these first responders, as you eloquently stated, who are putting their lives on the line, $10,000, we might as well be back in the time when my mama was able to get a cookie for 10 cents. It's time to move forward and get them more. It needs to be in the next budget. I think the budget is called the budget of the chairman. I think it's still the responsibility of the chair, regardless of what his aspirations are. We owe it better to the people of Clayton County. We owe it better to each and every one of you all who put your lives on the line. So I'm putting that really before the board. You know, sometimes you got to put a challenge out there. If you don't ask, you don't receive. So thank you for your work.
Commissioner, and I do want to be clear that the $10,000 is not all they get. That is extra that Clayton County gives to them at no cost. We have made a lot, and this is one area that I'm responsible for, that I am very proud of, and my team, because we have made a lot of different changes with the board's approval, like the discount, the premium discount that will be implemented this year. But our employees, I believe the life insurance, it goes up to, so we're probably a little bit behind McDonough if that's the number.
That's for free through McDonough,
but
by the way.
this is it 150? What is the maximum, Angela?
It's 25,000. Yeah.
For the public safety life insurance. So that's 20, well, I stand corrected then. That's why I brought Ms. Woods. So it's more than 10,000 that we just give them. It's 25,000 that we give them. And then they do have their life insurance that they purchase, and they can, and I see you shaking your head, Commissioner, but they can purchase up to over $200,000 of life insurance based on the insurance that we are providing them. So let me correct, it's more than 10,000, it's 25 that we are actually giving them free of charge, nothing that they have to do, and then they have their other basic life insurance that they can pay for with the commissioners also paying up to a certain amount, and they can get up to $200,000. I also want to say, because I like data, the majority, because one thing that HR does now under my leadership that we didn't do before is we survey our employees, as they can tell you. I know they get tired of us surveying them, but I tell them it's your voice, your workplace, your voice be heard. So when we survey, and I can be glad to share that survey data with the board, the majority of the employees indicate that they are satisfied with with the insurance that we provide them. Also, the amount that the county is paying, which is 72% of their premium. So we are making waves, and we are doing a lot of wonderful things when it comes to our employees, not only in the benefits arena, but other arenas as well.
25 or 200,000 is a little over 10%. That's what I want us to hear. We can't say that we keep our first responders first and we don't invest in them like we should. I thank you, though. You've done a great job.
You're more than welcome. Thank you so much.
Any other questions?
And this is it, Chairman, but is there any other questions that we can address?
I just got one more thing. Victoria and Olivia, I'm not even a public safety officer, but they cost me about $30,000 a year alone. So I don't know how our public safety people are able to do it. So we'll get it done. Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome. Okay.
Thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome, Chairman.
All right, next up.
One of my visions as the HR director is to position Clayton County as an employer of choice. I want employees to want to come to work for the county like I have stood with the county ups and downs for the last 25 years. So it is definitely my vision, and we can go to the next presentation, please. Thank you.
She does have the next item.
I do.
You just kind of like just went straight into that without really explaining.
Trying to save some time, you see.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I knew that you would.
So please proceed on now.
Okay, thank you. This one is very short as well. What we are doing is we are requesting to implement an online payment system for our Benefits Administration Division. The purpose is to enhance the services by offering an online payment option for over-the-counter payments for our retirees and/or their caregivers. Retirees live in many geographical locations, not all of them live locally. We want to, it will also benefit other employees, such as those on FMLA who may have to make over-the-counter payments, our early vested retirees, as well as their surviving spouses. So this online payment system will be able to assist many. The initial cost is $1,205. There is a monthly cost of what we've averaged to be $522.88. And I have in the presentation an itemized monthly cost example. The monthly cost includes an invoice fee as well as a processing fee, and we have broken that down based on approximately 86 invoices times 0.30 cents is $25.80, and then the processing fee, we looked at 86 invoice billed at approximately $175, and if you multiply that by the 0.033, you come out with your processing fee, which is about $497. We used 86 as the number because we looked over time the number of invoices we receive in HR per month.
Who's going to be handling this? What company? Did we do a RFP or RFQ?
It's the Square. It's Square, and we have several departments in Clayton County that are already using Square. And I have met with IT, we met with IT, we met with finance, and I'm assuming because of the amount, and Carol, you may be able to help me, Director Rogers, because of the amount, we did not have to do an RFP. Is that right, Carol?
Can we at least see the current agreement, Ms. Rogers? Director Rogers.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
Yes, I was just talking to the IT director. We are going to take a look at it under a certain threshold, which is $5,000. We're not required to have a competitive process, but if there's a service agreement, we are required to sign that. So we are already started working with the IT director to ensure that we have all the necessary paperwork for that.
So you said under $5,000. With the 500 alone, you're already at over $5,000.
Right, for this particular one, but for the ones that we have done for the other departments, if it's under that threshold, then it's something that we don't processed through our department unless there's a service agreement.
So what's being presented to us today is based upon the company that does not have a current agreement in place because it's under the threshold?
Right, that probably would be the case, yes.
So this does need to go out, and we need to make sure that there's no other, because we spent a lot of money on even the programming, like through community development. Is that going to be consistent with those programs? Have we looked at what are the issues with some of those programs so we can ensure that what's being presented is going to benefit us most and going to be most efficient and effective?
Right, so part of that is that when we look at actually what we already have established in the county, if we are trying to maintain to ensure that we have that continuously throughout our departments, then we can do a special purchase, which means that that vendor is already in the county contract. It would be logical for us to continue to have a contract with them. So there's other avenues that we can look at outside of just being competitive. It's kind of like if you have a Dell computer, we don't want to go start buying HP, because that's what we service. So the code allows us to do that as well.
So the only thing I would ask then is that we go back to ensure that the current provider is doing what needs to be done. As we know, there are a lot of things that we do and we continue to do, but the end user's already having issues with it. In particular, with any type of funding receipt program, I would want to make sure that it's not the same provider that was used in community development just a couple of years ago that was charging people 2 to 3 times on their credit cards than what it should have been. So we need to actually do that evaluation process that you mentioned about before, because this company has not gone through our rigorous evaluation process. So what may be a better idea is for us to look at what we have, then evaluate the effectiveness of it, and then from there, we look at bringing them together to see what that rate would be and send out that RFQ. Because if you don't send it out, you don't know who else is offering it. It may be Clover, it may be some other provider, or it may be something within IT that we're already paying for.
Ms. Montalvo, you have something to add?
Yes. So the credit card processor that we use currently for community development and some of the other departments is different from Square. Currently, we use Square for the parks. We decided to go with that credit card processor because the ease of the transactions was easier versus the program that they currently use. So when people drive in to come to the water park, then they could just easily swipe their credit card to get a ticket. We did evaluate looking at all the credit card providers with finance to see if the transaction fee was on par. It is. It's 3.3%, and that is the amount that she's giving you. So it's really to the discretion of the department head if they want to incur the cost and have the county pay the cost, or if they want to pass the cost off to the citizen who is paying with the credit card. So in the case of PD with animal control, they are providing 3% to the citizen, and then they eat the 0.3%, and then it's an additional 30 cents on top of that.
Thank you.
With, I'm not 100% sure, but with Parks and Rec, I think they pass on the credit card fee to the citizen. So it's really the department head's decision on what they want to do, and in this case, Ms. Pam decided that she would eat the cost of the 3.3% plus 30 cents per transaction.
Right, and that's because of who we're dealing with. We're dealing with our
Speak in the mic,
retirees.
please.
I'm sorry, Chairman. That's because we're dealing with our retirees. We don't want to ask them to pay any more than they have to. So that's why I brought it before the board.
One other quick question on the retirees. Do we do automatic transfer through their banks? Because they can set that up as well. Do we currently have that available?
Let me get
That would be through the Square. Currently, I believe they only take cash or credit card. Or cash or checks right now.
Is that Ms. Angela? You can speak to that.
But using a Square, they could also set up a direct deposit through their bank.
Got it. Thank you so
Are
much.
there any questions from anybody else?
Yes.
Go ahead, Commissioner Hamburg.
Who is this fee for? The setup costs, the monthly and all, is that for the county or for each individual employee?
No, ma'am, that's for the county. That's what I'm asking you all, at your discretion and authority to approve that. So that $12,200, that's for the equipment and getting it set up and all of that. but this would be something that is great for the retirees, because I've gotten a lot of calls. The chairman has gotten a lot of calls about, especially from the caregivers. Now, I've had one retiree who said that I'm not going to use it. I'll just continue to mail my payment in. But we have had several retirees and their caregivers asking, you know, I hate to keep sending it through the mail. It's not getting there on time. There's got to be a better way. And with the technology that we have, why we're asking
If the
today.
number of employees change, does this monthly fee change?
The monthly fee is based on the number of invoices, Commissioner, and that is a conservative. It's a little bit more liberal. The 86 is a little bit more liberal, because we want to make sure that we're not going under budget, and of course anything that we don't use for that budget year return to the county. But I am confident to stand here and say, and as the commissioner said earlier, these meetings are recorded, thank God. I'm confident to say that we will not go over that monthly cost that I presented to the board. Because we looked at the data that we had before, and we landed on this 86 based on what we've seen before over a period of time.
Commissioner Davis.
Yes, I see you, but it's billed at 175. Is that your average build? Is that the standard?
Yes,
build?
yes, sir. That's average. We tried to average out everything to come up with a good number. So you'll have a few of those invoices that will be below that, and you'll have a few of them that may be slightly above. Yes, sir.
And also, too, your monthly cost, that includes all your equipment, whether it's the standalone machines or the small, I forget they call them dingles.
Yes, sir. The monthly cost, that initial cost of that $1,205, that's going to get us the equipment that we need, and then everything else is the monthly cost thereafter, and it's captured there for the board.
Okay. Can we get I'd like to see some other information off of some of the other providers, because if many of them are using Square, then can another agreement be worked out?
They don't have one right
now. A greater number of invoices that's being put in.
We can. Yeah, we can. As I said earlier, I met with IT. We talked about this. We met with finance. And because we already have them within the system, that's why we thought it would be, because I can't say we, I made that call, thought it would be easier to just go ahead and utilize them. And I know the cost is, a lot less than some of the things that we pay for, but we got to be prudent in every area. So I understand that.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, Square is a good product, but I think there's other products when you start dealing in bulk. You get a better bulk rate.
Okay.
Also, for clarity, because there's two different things here, you stated, Director Rogers, you stated that every other division that's using it currently is under the threshold for that agreement to come before the board.
They're in the threshold as far as the dollar amount of the competitiveness. So if you're looking at it from what we talked about, which was a special purchase, then that means that they can purchase, we as in Central Services can purchase up to $75,000 without going out competitively. So if we're looking at, we're using Square because that's the most logical choice, then yes, there is something that allows us to do that. But if the will of the board is for us to look at other options with the IT department to see if there's some other things out there that we can look at, if we're under that threshold of $75,000, we do have some flexibility within Central Services. Is when we cross over that amount that we go into a more formal process.
Okay, so let me ask a question again. Do we currently have an agreement in place with either of the providers?
We do have Square for Parks and Recreation, so we do have that, and we have the agreement for the system that's being used down by Community Development. So there are agreements, it's just it doesn't require the board approval.
Got it.
If you look back, they did come back to you on the monthly report because of the dollar amount.
Can we have those agreements to review?
Yes, I can get the one for Square. We'll certainly get that over to you, Commissioner.
Thank you so much. And the one for Community Development. And then the end user use reports.
Yes, we'll get those over. And once again, we'll talk, if I've been talking with the IT director, and we'll determine if there's some other items you all want us to look at to determine what's another process. Because there's a lot of things that's already out there under co-op, so we don't necessarily, once again, have to be competitive. We just need to know our options.
Right. And one final note, though, is when we're talking about having to charge based upon invoices, what we don't want to do is lock ourselves in a maximum or minimum rate when the number of invoices will change over a period of time. Because unfortunately, with our retirees, people do, I hate to say it, expire with the retirees, and they may have another job someplace else, but usually it's because they've retired out. It is the expiration of it. So I don't want us to get in a predicament where we're paying for 86 invoices when in actuality, we end up going a little bit lower than that, but we're stuck in the same monthly rate.
And we'll get the quote and we'll start the reviewing process.
We only pay for what we use.
We only pay for what we use. That's what I
Yes,
wanted to know.
ma'am, it's just per transaction. So the estimate, what she gave you was just the estimate, not the cap or amount or what we
Glad
agreed
you
to.
said that. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for your presentation.
Oh, you're welcome, Chairman.
And
And it
thank-
does not have an option for them to actually call in. And there are security concerns that I talked with IT about that anyway. You had asked about an option of them calling in. That's not an option. It is an option, but there's an additional cost with a virtual platform, but it's less secure. And it was one that I wouldn't want to take on the risk for myself or my team. Board, it's always a pleasure. Thank you all so much.
And thank you for all that you do for our employees and retirees. Thank you. Summer season incentive program. Mr. Hodges.
Good evening, Board. Tonight we're going to talk to you about the Summer Seasonal Incentive Program for the 2024 upcoming summer season. We have two incentive programs, two types. One is a points or rewards, and the other one is a monetary reward, similar to what we have done in the past couple of years. The incentive program it's an in-house program offered to the seasonal employees of Spivey Splash, as well as all of the seasonal lifeguard staff at the other facilities with pools. The program will run opening weekend, of course, Memorial Day, through the last operating day in August. The first type is the rewards program, and it's based upon a point type system. So eligible seasonal employees can earn points by working the required number of shifts as described below. Once earned, points can be redeemed for specific incentives. Points can only be redeemed to the manager over that employee's position. In other words, lifeguard A can't go to just any of the managers. They have to go to their specific managers to verify all of the points that they have received in the days worked and stuff like that. No points will roll over or transfer to the next season. All unused points will be lost at the end of August. The 3 employees with the highest point totals at the end of August will receive a separate reward. All points earned over the course of May through August. So the top 3 employees through May through August will be calculated for this reward, and the reward will be some type of gift card donated by a local business. We don't have it yet, so it'll be some type of gift card to a local business, restaurant or something. That's for the top 3 with the most points. So the point system is basically off this. If you work Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, you'll receive 2 points. If you work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, you'll get 3 points. If you work Saturday, you'll get 3 points. If you work Sunday, you'll get 3 points. Holidays are worth 3 points. So the employee must work a minimum of 4-hour shift to have the day counted. The employee must work a full day open to close to have that day counted on the weekends. So in other words, you can't just work 4 hours on a Saturday or Sunday and expect to get the entire point total. If an employee does not work a shift on any day between Tuesday through Friday, they will not earn points for those days. If an employee has to leave work early for any reason, not including early closure, as you know, sometimes with the weather, the park closes early. That won't be counted against them. For severe weather, emergency circumstances, and is unable to work a complete shift on that day, they will not earn any points for the day in question. So if we close early for a day, it's not gonna count against them as they didn't work the entire day. No employee will be penalized if the water park closes early due to emergency closure for severe weather, emergency safety reasons, park facility issues, etc., etc. So, when they redeem the points, if an employee seeks to redeem their points for an incentive item, the employee must do so while at work. So they can't come on their off day and say, hey, Mr. Manager, I would like to redeem my 20 points for the pair of sunglasses. It's got to be on the day they're at work, and at a day when it is convenient for that manager to be able to work with that employee to redeem their points. No employee can redeem their points on an off day. They must redeem their points with the manager or designated representative for the rewards program over their position. Some of the points would be a free guest pass. If you get 4 points, you'll get a free guest pass to the water park. Frozen snack for 7 points. I mean, do you want me to go through this?
No, I think we.
Yeah, it's a point system to where when they accumulate these points, they are able to say, we would like to redeem some of the points. And basically, we're trying to keep these lifeguards. One of the big ones is a 45-minute private free play after the park. After the park closes, of course, all of the lifeguards have to go through, sweep the entire park, get all of the trash up, and then they're able to, go down the slides or, float around the lazy river to relax or whatnot. But that's a big incentive to a lot of them. They like to do that in the summertime. Some additional rewards will be the polarized sunglasses, the drink tumblers, the Yeti type. They won't be Yetis, but they'll be similar to it, or a backpack, for those types of things. It'll be things that they want to use when they're standing out there in the sun. Okay, the next one I'm going to bring up Vincent McPherson. He is our aquatics manager, and he is going to explain the monetary incentive program to you guys.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everybody. As Director Hodges stated, the purpose of this monetary incentive is to make sure we have the staffing numbers that we need on our busiest days throughout the water park season. So just quick background information. Our opening season, we called fire and EMS personnel at least twice every weekend in our first opening season. Last season, my lifeguard staff did an outstanding job to where with the weekend incentive that we initially already had in place, we did not have to make a single call to 911 throughout the entire month of June, and we only had to call 911 twice during 4th of July weekend due to severe first aid emergencies. This incentive is not the direct reason, but it is one of the foundational reasons why we have the adequate amount of staff at Spivey Splash Water Park to be able to keep our citizens safe as they come and enjoy a fun day at the water park that they so deserve to be able to. With the weekend incentive program, it is attendance-based, and it is recorded through myself, the other manager staff, and is verified by the administrative staff before they are officially awarded any monetary gains for their services on working any weekend shifts. Lifeguards specifically for this incentive will have the opportunity to earn an additional $150 a month for working every operating weekend starting on Memorial Day weekend in May, which runs into June all the way through the last weekend in August. If an employee works all of those eligible weekends through opening weekend in May all the way through August, they will have the opportunity to earn a total of $450. Next slide, if you please. The rules for our program are if a lifeguard is hired and processed to work at Spivey Splash Water Park only. This does not include, as the incentive before, with all seasonal employees who are working at our other facilities such as South Clayton and Carl Rodenizer, but specific to Spivey Splash Water Park. They must work an entire scheduled weekend, with the operational days being as follows: 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Saturday and 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Sunday. At the end of each month, the lifeguard's attendance will be recorded and sent over for verification. Once the attendance of that lifeguard has been fully verified by all members involved, they will be able to potentially earn up to a total of $450 for the entire program. But if they only work all eligible weekends in the month of June, they will be eligible for just specifically that $150. But if they fall short in the following months of July and August, they will not be eligible for the subsequent $150 for those 2 months. If an employee has to leave work for any reason, such as with the rewards program, we do run into the issue of emergencies not consistent with severe weather or facility issues, but for those situations where an employee has to leave for whatever personal reason, if they knew beforehand but do not mention to us that they have to leave until they are in the middle of their shift, that day will not count, and they will no longer be in contention for the $150 incentives for that month. But they will not be penalized overall if we have to close for severe weather or any emergency situation that does not directly come from them from a personal standpoint. So just to follow up again, if an employee works every Saturday and Sunday for the month of June for the entire shift, they will be eligible for the $150 for that specific month. But if they fail to meet the minimum requirement of the requirements for the months of July, which is 8 total days, or the full requirements in August where we are weekends only, they will not be eligible for those months. Thank you for your time at this. If there are any questions, I will be more than happy to answer for both the rewards program as well as the weekend incentive.
All right, any questions? Go ahead, Commissioner Amber.
Okay, you all have schedules, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, what if, I don't know how many lifeguards you have, but what if some do not, or will not have a scheduled weekend? Does that prevent them from getting either the incentive of the rewards or the incentive of the pay?
Per our policy at Spivey Splash Water Park, all weekends are mandatory. At the minimum, I have to have at least 20 lifeguards, and that does include our skeleton crew, as we label it, at the water park for safety reasons. So we schedule as many as we can. So if we run into those issues of I am not able to come into work for a emergency personal reason, we know we're adequately staffed. But as of right now, due to the numbers that we consistently have, we have not run into a situation where no lifeguard member is not able to be scheduled for the weekends that are eligible.
Okay, good. There's something else to schedule. So your your rec centers that have pools,
Yes, ma'am.
that is not an eligible place, because I know the Virginia Gray has an inside pool. And
Yes, ma'am, they do have a pool, and last year we did extend this program to those employees as well, but due to the schedules that they have at their indoor facilities, the amount of hours that they have to put on themselves, most of them attempted for the first month and made a good effort, but by the time we get to July, most of them started to shy towards I need time to recuperate, I need time to be able to prepare for what I have going on in my other facilities. And with the expected increase in the amount of staff members we will have at Spivey Splash, the opportunity for them to be able to get a shift at Spivey Splash Water Park this season is not as high as it was last season.
okay, so are you saying that because of what was done last year or the year before, does not make the rec centers that have indoor pools eligible?
No, ma'am. This is why all of the indoor pools, what was happening last year is why we extend the rewards program to all of our seasonal lifeguard staff, because their schedules are more week-based, because we have more day-to-day programs that they are responsible for. Whereas with the weekend incentive, this is to incentivize the Spivey Splash employees to be more consistent with working on the weekends where they are more needed. Whereas with the rewards program,
Having everybody wanting to work Spivey Splash Park and not the rec centers. I'm trying to be clear on this.
Well, the rec centers are closed on Sunday, right?
yes, sir, they are.
Yeah,
So they would have to
they
come
open
in
on
and cover.
Saturdays.
They would have to come in and cover a shift at Spivey Splash. Whereas with the amount of hours that they are pushing, with their hours of operation being at 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., there are some employees who are working Monday through Saturday from 8 in the morning all the way till 6 in the afternoon.
But I can
Yes, ma'am.
see folk wanting to be over here, and then we are without lifeguards at our rec center. So, but we can talk offline.
Yeah, depending on how many lifeguards we end up
Talk to the mic
hiring
for me.
that would like to, be a lifeguard, we could open this up to, say you had a lifeguard that was at Virginia Gray, that worked Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. He wanted to try to go for the weekend incentive where he worked Saturday and Sunday. Or she, would be able to do that.
Okay.
Provided we had enough lifeguards in our system.
So
to
there's
allow
a
that.
possibility.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We hope that we have that issue.
Okay, right. That would be a good one.
Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, just one quick question. I know you spoke about they could only redeem their points while they are on duty, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
My question is, what happens at the end of the season in August? They work that last day, and they have points that have not yet been rewarded, I guess, of yet. How would those points?
They'll be able to receive them, but basically is to keep the leads and the managers from, in the middle of the day, trying to go inside into the office and deal with a lifeguard that says I have 20 points when he really needs 22 points.
Okay.
It's just a convenience thing.
So everybody that gets rewards also qualify for the money. Is that correct?
The money is for the weekend incentive only.
Right, but I'm just,
If they work on the weekend.
yeah,
then
they
yes.
still,
Yeah,
yeah,
Yes,
they're
would be
eligible
eligible
for
for
both.
both.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, the only thing I have to say is remember, we still follow, when any benefits that we give, they must be given consistently within classes. What I mean by the class of employee, and if you're giving something to one employee that's within a class, everybody has to get it. So I think we have an attorney, they could be able to help y'all do that part. That's the only thing I want to do.
Thank you.
Great idea.
Thank you for your presentation. All right, last up, sheriff's budget.
Good evening, Chairman, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. In my role as Deputy CFO, one of my responsibilities is to take significant budgetary issues to the CFO for her to then evaluate them. Last week, I informed the CFO that the Sheriff's Office budget was projected to exceed by $14.8 million. She then decided to add it onto this agenda. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here tonight, so she asked me to present. Two of the things I would like to note first regarding the budget process. One, the code does not permit any department head or elected official to exceed their budget without prior approval from this board. Two, the sheriff's office has not currently exceeded his budget. At this time, he still has $4.86 million remaining. However, for the sheriff's office, that's a couple of payrolls and a couple of medical service invoices. Once again, the CFO has put this on the agenda to make you aware because of the amount of the overage, and to ask for guidance as to how to proceed at this point. Currently, personnel represents approximately $7.4 million of this overage, including personnel in the admin as well as courthouse security. You have $6.9 million represented by the medical service fees, And then you have other items sprinkled in, for example, 464,000 of the food and dietary supplies that represents this 14.86 million overage, projected shortfall.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I see we have Major Martin here with us as well. My only question would be, how did we get to this point, this situation where we're 14 million over? Major.
Over?
I mean under. I went over. Over
Yes.
budgeted.
Where they're projected to exceed their budget.
The projection, granted, it's a projection.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair, and Board. So with this budget, in 2003, the jail had 117 COs. In 2020, it exceeded to 170 COs, and then currently the jail has allotted slots of 118 COs. Correctional officers, I apologize, ma'am, a correctional officer. Somehow we've went backwards in our numbers over the years. As far as we were 117 in 2003, 170, back to 118. And this is no reflection on Sheriff Allen or this board based on this. We could say previous administrations or previous people that were in position in the county, that the reason why these positions were down, which is causing a huge overtime budget. I think we're over 2 million on the 2.5 on the overtime. Being that even though we're fully staffed by the numbers, we're not properly staffed. It's a huge difference in between fully staffed and properly staffed. Part of my job at the Clayton County Sheriff's Office, I'm over background and recruiting. We have a waiting list of people that's authorized to come to work for us. They've passed they passed the muster to come to work for us. The background and everything and their qualifications exceed that, but we cannot hire them. And with that, again, we're fully staffed, but not properly staffed. To properly staff us, that we need the extra positions we've asked for on there. I know we just got the 33 positions, which the 33 positions were right before the 2024 budget come into the play. So as it crossed that threshold, I believe that was in June that we got the 33 positions that crossed that for the July 1st.
I thought it was later in the year.
When they got the 33,
Yeah.
it was right before FY24 began. So they initially, it was approved in maybe May or June, yes.
And that can have some impact on the budget as well, crossing that threshold with that. So the jail to function properly, at the end of the day, we lock these doors, we all go home, but the jail's 24/7. As you heard the Chief Magistrate Judge bring a presentation to the board with how many people that are actually coming in our jail. We're running a mental health facility, basically. And as you had them as a witness, they see this every single day, which shows the increase of medical cost for our facility as well. So with that increase of medical costs, it's going to cost our budget as well. We just come out of a pandemic with over 1,700 inmates in the jail, but close to 2,000 that we're running. With that medical costs have reached a new high. I know we've experienced that on our own personal levels here at the county, with you guys doing a great job of keeping our medical insurance down to a minimum that you can. But then again, y'all are fighting the battles as well with either Kaiser or on the other medical things that we have to keep that in perspective, but they still want to go up on us each year. And with that, to keep the adequate doctors on plan, you go to Grady, you go to 22G, which is Southern Regional. You go to these facilities, they have doctors, nursing, RNs, LPNs around the clock there. Same way with our facility here at the jail. It's a small city. If you think about 2,000 people, that's a small city of people. There's cities that don't even hold a population of 2,000 people. And with that, they have no other choice but to be there. For one reason or another, we say, well, they shouldn't have broke the law, but not everybody there is guilty. because not everyone there is sentenced inmate. We have a lot of pretrial inmates that are at our facility. So with this, they have no choice. We have to feed them. We have to clothe them. We have to provide them soap, toilet paper, food. The rising cost of food cost as we come out of the pandemic itself. As we know, when we go to the grocery store, we see our grocery store bill go up and up and up. And the same way with the cost of food, dietary supplies, everything with the increased number of the expenses at the jail, which, you know, we have no choice. We are the keepers. The Clayton County Sheriff's Office is the keepers. Forest Park arrests somebody, they come to the Clayton County Jail. We cannot say, hey, we're full. Well, we're over budget, Forest Park, so take them somewhere else. There is nowhere else for a prisoner to go but the Clayton County Sheriff's Office, just like you heard the presentation with the airport bringing us a number of people. All them people are coming down to our facility, which we have no choice. We can't tell them to take them somewhere else. They're here. They're with us. So with that, you know, that costs money. And, of course, it just increases with the it's over cost.
Did I hear you correctly? You said at one time in the past you were budgeted 170 and now that's back down to...
No, sir. It was, yes, sir. It was, from my numbers that I received, at one time it was 170 correctional officers. Now we're back at 118 correctional officers.
118.
As allotted spots from the county. That's what we're allotted, is 118 correctional officers.
And that dropped from 170.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Well, do you recall what year that was?
I don't know which year did it cost, but 2020 was 170 correctional officers, and currently we have 118 as allotted slots.
So the 33 that he just got last budget cycle, he asked for deputy sheriffs, but he said he can use them also in the jail. Has he not used them for correctional officers?
Yes, sir. We use correctional officers and deputies across the board as needed. So if there is a shortage in the jail, the deputies would assist in the jail. So there is across the board, there would be assist. We also used we've also hired a lot of part-time deputies to come on board with us to assist with the overtime. So what the sheriff's allotting is to be properly staffed. If we're properly staffed with the positions we need, overtime, the bleeding of overtime, which we've bled out for years on overtime, I'm sure y'all have seen the budget, is bled out for years on overtime. That's because no one's presented to be properly staffed. They're always talking about being fully staffed. But you can be fully staffed but not properly staffed. And with that, the bleeding out of overtime is every year. That robs us of a total budget. So if you think $5 million and we're over 2.5, we're talking $7 million. If we had that to convert back out to positions available to be properly staffed, then overtime will go down to a minimum of just emergencies only, like other agencies and other departments that are here in the county. And we wouldn't bleed out on the back end. So being that we need the staff on the front end, unfortunately we need more, but we're bleeding out on the back end, and that's where we're going over this budget. But bleeding out on the back end is not only overtime, but again, you're looking at food and dietary supplies is going way
I was about
up.
to say it's more than just personnel.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Other line items that you're running a deficit.
Yeah, that's
Are there
correct.
any other questions? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammer.
So is overtime a budgeted item, a budgeted line item?
Yes, ma'am. If you, I'm not sure you can see that screen from there, but overtime was budgeted at 4.5 million. They've spent 4.7 million to date. They're projected to end the year at 6.7 million for a deficit of 2.3 million.
So, what does finance do? If anybody, not just the sheriff's office, but if anybody goes over whatever their designated budget is, say you have X amount for overtime, does the finance office say, hey, you all have reached your goal here, you know, that's it, or you just keep paying? How does that work?
With personnel, if you incur the cost, you have to pay the employee what they have earned. But that is what we're doing today, is making you aware that he's projected to exceed his overtime budget, as well as other line items. With any other item like office supplies or something of that nature, then we would call them up, you need to do a line item transfer, you're out of money, you can't put in this purchase right now. And the PO system won't even allow them to put in a purchase, but personnel is treated a little differently. And then medical service fees, you receive invoices for that. Invoices are usually about $1 million for medical service fees at an estimate. They change depending on the issue at hand. You have a base price of about $1 million, $1.2 million, but they fluctuate depending on what issues or what issues outside of that contract may arise that you have to pay for. So when those invoices come in, we do have to pay those, but currently he's not over budget, so we can't stop anything that he's doing currently. As a constitutional officer, as long as he does not exceed his bottom line, we can't do anything, but we're making the board aware at this time and seeking guidance as to how you would like us to proceed, because he is projected to exceed, or the sheriff's office is projected to exceed their budget by the 14.8.
Okay, but I'm not just talking about the sheriff's office, I'm talking about any department.
Now, any other department, if they can't put in a PO if they don't have the funds available. So they would call over to finance, to the budget team, and ask for a line item transfer or a budget amendment, and we would process those accordingly.
Do you remember years ago when we did something, anyway, we'll talk offline about how to keep that line item closer to what it should be. It was a long time ago when I first came on board.
Yes, ma'am.
I think we got more people, yes, thank you. I think we have more people flowing through our jail since years ago, unfortunately. That's number one. Number two, we're still coming off the heels of COVID, which we still have not recovered from. So let me say this, in all due respect. This is why I asked for you all to participate, although we can only ask. And I specifically asked the current sheriff to participate in a very, very important process, two of them. One is the SPOS process. You all have not done that. The other one is the process for the fees, and that's fees in lieu of taxes. That program that we are working on right now is going to help to alleviate some of this pressure off of you all. But unfortunately, no one has showed up in the last time I checked from the sheriff's office. So when you come in before the board to ask us to help you, we have to make sure that you all have people there and not just coming before the board putting a Band-Aid on the issue. And please understand that's with all due respect, because you know that I fight for and I literally fight now. I don't even care no more. I put my boots on, strap, and fight for y'all to get paid, to get your budget, to get what you need, not just as a constitutional office, but everyone that are first responders. That's number one. So I need you all to please amend that quicker than later. There is a meeting coming up. You can get with DCOO, or else, again, we're going to fall behind and behind. The other thing is we're coming up on our renewal of our SPOS program. The jail needs a lot of work. If you get in the SPOS program, and when we get ready to renew the SPOS, that's going to give a percentage of every dollar that is spent within our county to be utilized on top of the fees that are collected for inmates and through the judiciary process to be used to now help you all alleviate some of this. So those are the two things that I honestly, respectfully urge you all to please get involved in. That process has been going on well over almost 2 years now, absent of one or two people waiting to get information in from them, but over 2 years now. So please don't let that train miss you. The second thing is, regardless, we got to understand that we always looking at the end result. And this is not particular to you as a sheriff employee or the sheriff himself. But we have to understand, y'all don't just go out and say, hey, I want y'all to come to jail today. We're talking about people who go through the judicial system, people who are coming from the airport. So it is incumbent upon this board, as opposed to just say, well, you're running over your budget. We need to figure out why the people are still sitting in jail. And I've said it over and over again. In some cases, we ain't even holding the state accountable to come pick up their own people. We're not holding ICE accountable to pick up their people. So what happens is you got to keep feeding them. You got to make sure that they have health insurance. And I see you nodding your head. Because the thing, when we have folks that are not managing this county as it should be managed to do our job, which is to provide you with the financial support you need, it's our job to be able to analyze what is causing your increased costs, what is causing the overtime. For us to just say, well, we need to stop you from going over budget, that doesn't fix the problem. What you going to do, not arrest the person? We just finished going through our service delivery strategy. And I specifically asked for this board, and again, the current person to say, sit down with these cities and make sure what we're collecting from them is adequate. Why should we carry the brunt of being over budget for collecting folks from the cities? Why? We got to fix this. And it's incumbent upon us to do so. So I thank you all for bringing it before us. But again, I like the judge earlier. We can either keep doing the same thing, expecting different results, or we can get involved, get down to understand all variables, and really fix the problem.
All right.
There's 4.86 remaining, correct?
Excuse me?
There's 4.86 remaining in the budget.
Correct.
When
Yes, sir.
is this expected to be expended?
Their payrolls are almost 2 million, so I guess a month worth of payrolls would exceed the budget, or it depends on when those invoices, the medical service invoices roll in that are approximately 1.2 million.
Okay.
Those are their heaviest items,
Okay, so roughly about two and a half months.
or a month.
Or a month. Okay, I'm
yes.
sorry.
A month of payrolls, or, you're fine.
Okay.
A month of payroll, it depends. The invoices are a little bit less than that, so it could be a month of payroll or several invoices.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
Thank you. And also, I guess when were you made aware of this?
We evaluate their budget monthly
Monthly,
and go through their budget, but it also depends, because they are treated a little differently
Right.
by law, of course, then you can't bring it until they reach a certain point.
Okay, okay. Because I guess my concern is, when the budget was created, it seems like it was created off of what, being properly staffed? Or being fully staffed rather than properly staffed? And I guess we need to begin to figure out, how is that short? If that's the case, and we just gave 33 officers, something is off here a little bit to me on the projections, as well as how much money is actually needed to move forward. I mean, they're asking for what, $14 million?
They're not asking, that's what will be needed.
The requested shortfall, roughly about $15 million.
Yes, sir.
There's a lot of questions here, I think.
Yeah, and we can have questions, but at the end of the day, we're constitutionally bound to pay it, and that's the interesting part. So what we've got to do is make sure that we get down to the nuts and the bolts. We can't, fortunately or unfortunately, manage your budget. That's not our job. And this board needs to understand it is not our job. It is our job to be able to make sure that we fully fund for what's coming in. And as I stated earlier, it is unfair to a certain extent to weigh everything on you all, but it's also unfair when you have an ask and you come before the board and we push to give you what you need, but you don't show up. That's very, very difficult.
And let me say this, and you're absolutely correct, Commissioner Franklin. We do not control or regulate after the budget has been given to the sheriff. That falls solely on the responsibility and duty of the sheriff and sheriff's department. The budget that we have assessed, I think this year was what, 44.5 million or something to that effect. And never, in the past, when they have went over, it's been because of salaries and payroll issues.
It's the same thing.
This is a whole lot of other line items where there's a deficit. That's projected to be a deficit. But at the end of the day, we can sit here and we can look at the nuts and bolts and the skinny of everything and say, okay, well, where is the sheriff's department going to go over next year or thereafter, and try to put more money. We done spent another $13 million at the sheriff's department, fixing the brick and mortar as well as addressing the needs that sheriff has brought before us. Now, we gave them, what was it, $2 million for the 33 officers deputies that, once we allocate that, we can't tell them where to put them.
Correct.
We had the sheriff and I had that conversation. He does as he sees fit, as he sees the needs within that department. But for us to make an assumption as to what is going to be a shortfall within the budget would be hard to do. That's why we would need some real analytical input, some data from the sheriff's department that says, hey, this is something that is realistic. Because at the end of the day, the budget has to be reasonable and realistic. And when you bring that to us for budgetary recommendation, or a proposal, then yeah, I think we have always in the past accommodated what is needed if it's been explained, if it's reasonable, and if it's a true need and desire. So I say all that to say the budget process is coming up real soon. And when you bring that budget, please bring a reasonable, realistic budget that covers all of the needs, because the sheriff's department is the only one who knows what's going to be needed. Correct. We can assume all day long, and we can say, we want you to bring this to us or whatever else. End of the day, the sheriff's department has to tell us what their needs are. Right. And I would appreciate all the data that you can bring in that respect as well.
So also to make one point that Southern Regional brought us several invoices that were quite a large amount. I believe there were a couple of $1 million of invoices that was from 2019, 2020, 21, and beyond our scope of this year as well. So if you take that in consideration as well, that's going to put us, that should withdraw from your minds of the sheriff's over budgeting for this year. That should come out and say, hey, this was something that was previous years.
But had not been paid.
That had not been paid. That's
right.
Correct.
Not by our end, but it has not been paid by the sheriff's department, is what I was told by Southern Regional. And then that continued to.
We don't pay the medical bills that comes from the county.
I'm glad you clarified that.
Were the invoices submitted?
I'll have to find that information out.
Please find that
From
out.
my understanding, we don't pay the line items from the medical bill.
No,
but they have to be.
They have to be submitted. That's correct. But
submitted.
But if Southern Regional never submitted them to us, we wouldn't have known them as well.
Glad you said that.
If that's the case, I don't believe that in the presumption that if we had a bill that it was not submitted to the county.
Unfortunately, that is consistent with what has been going on with Southern Regional even before Prime Healthcare came aboard. So I'm reading you. You know, this is my wheelhouse.
Right.
So what we need to know is why we gave them $9 million, but we're still stuck with a bill from them. That's number one. Why is it that they said that the $9 million would be used for mental health, but we have two areas from the judicial system and now the sheriff's office telling us that the county is eating more costs to an extent of several $1 million when we gave them $9 million. The other thing is, I want to know how many fees are actually brought in through the judicial system. Again, we need to analyze the service delivery strategy to the cities and others to see if we're bringing in enough. We can't just look at it in isolation. And I'm glad that you all are doing the work you're doing. And some people may need to be brought up to speed by legal on what is the responsibility of government versus of the sheriff's office. And maybe they would be able to figure out on operations side to know what's billed, what's not billed. And so we won't be giving money when we are still having to pay out money. That would be a good idea.
Also be a good idea to know what we're speaking about in reference to the $7 million that we gave Southern Regional. It was for indigent care and not for mental health.
This is indigent care, sir.
No, indigent care is more than just mental health. Have a good evening. Very disrespectful. At any rate,
but
anything else?
I think
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I think on the sheriff's office side, you know, again, if we look at more than just the overtime is because of the personnel. Even though, again, we did get to 33 people, but it didn't get us to the threshold we need to, because we have courts wide open now. Courts during the pandemic dropped. We didn't have as many people working in the courts. Now we have an increase of deputies working in the courts to protect our judges, because prior we only had one deputy per courtroom, and that's not enough when you have 50 to 100 prospects or people, citizens in the courtroom, plus you got the defendant, then you got the angry families. You got a lot going on in the courtroom. So Sheriff Allen has implemented with the judges to increase security in the courthouse. Again, we have more than one person at the door. We usually only had one person sitting at the atrium door coming in. It was several years ago, I intercepted a guy that brought in 2 guns in the courthouse and was going to shoot up the courthouse. And I was by myself in that front atrium, and how ugly that could have been, because every other deputy in that courthouse, I believe this was in 2017 or 18, how ugly it could have been, me by myself trying to find off somebody with 2 guns coming in blazing. So we've increased our security at the courthouse. We've increased the number of deputies on court side. So that's part of the 33 that helped increase some of the part-time positions. We've helped increase the security in the courthouse to keep our judges safe, because prior there wasn't that amount there. Again, of course, the jail's our biggest ticket in line item. Everybody knows that. It's a small city down there. And food, we can't help food costs. The food cost goes up, we got to feed them. We don't have a choice. Just got to feed them. So if we line out and say, hey, board, we need $50,000 a week to feed, these inmates, and we're up to $2,000, and all of a sudden our numbers increase in the jail, or how many people flow through the jail, because there's people that come in and there's people that leave. Not everybody stays. We still have to feed them. There's still a nurse and a doctor that checks every person out that comes in that jail. We have to pay that nurse. We have to pay that doctor. And we've had to pay premium fees because not every nurse or even doctor, LPN, or nurse practitioner wants to work with jail inmates. It takes a special person.
But those fees are contracted fees, which means they're going to be that way for a year. So there's not going to be escalation of the fees in mid-year. So they have to at least give us a year. And again, I'm going back to the reasonable budget. If they're saying that, hey, this bag of food is going to go up an extra $50, then when you come to us, you need to say, hey, because of the increased escalation in whatever fees there are, then we need an increase in this line item. Like I said, when you bring that information to us and you bring the data that shows that yes, or the request or the contract or whatever, then we're going to accommodate that. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
If there's a built-in number for part-time, because you're not adequately staffed in the jail for correctional officers, and you're probably going to be paying more because they're working 12 hours with 8 hours built in a week or whatever it is.
Now we got the jail on 8 hours. They were on 12. We've
that should cut down
accommodated.
some of that.
We've accommodated as well on that to try to alleviate that amount of people here. We try to do change that for the overtime as well, plus the livelihood of each person. We want people to have family time and not sit there and burn themselves out at the jail or on the road or everywhere, no matter where, even at no matter what agency you work for, you can burn an officer out really quick by working multiple hours. And I think that's where we're trying to get to the point, even in the jail. 20 years ago, I first started in 2002 as a correctional officer. I did leave for a short period and I came back. But during that time, an officer in the control tower and an officer on the floor adequately ran a housing unit. And there was around 175 to maybe up to 196 inmates in that housing unit, maybe. And sometimes there was less, because sometimes you didn't have a whole full housing units at one time. And that time we had 2 housing units that was closed down. There's 8 total. We had 2 that was closed. At this time, we're running all 8 housing units, all 8 dorms, plus the increase of amount of people that's having to sleep on the floor. There's no longer 2 in the cell. There's people sleeping on the floor, with the upwards of 2,000 people. So it takes an upward of 2 to 3, sometimes 4 people to run a housing unit, but for the safety of the officers and to make sure, and again, that everybody's safe, from the staff, the nurses that have to go down there, contract workers, CGL, or whoever needs to go down there and do anything. We have to have adequate staff for them. Escort, as you know, the board knows, there's a lot of projects that has been going on at the sheriff's office. Y'all put a lot of money into that, and we certainly appreciate the extra efforts on there. But those people need to be escorted. We can't just let them run freely in the jail. So we're talking about additional people, additional staff. Even the deputies have assisted with those escorts. There's extra, again, the overtime. It's a totality. I understand at the beginning of the year you're supposed to say, hey, we're going to have $200,000 in food costs for this year, and it could go over. It very well could go over. Anything can change at any time. We've had an increase of paying out extra styrofoam trays. We had to pay styrofoam trays because the dishwasher kept going in and out, going down, going down, going down. So every time the dishwasher went down, we had to pay that cost of, I believe it was 17 cents per styrofoam tray to go down the hallway. And we had to incur that cost. We couldn't pass it on to the contractor and say it's your fault that the dishwasher, it's our fault. So there's a lot of extra costs that we've incurred this year. Plus with like again, with the mental health patients, we can't give them a hard tray. There are certain people we have to give them the styrofoams. There's a lot of things that come into the equation.
And let me say this, and I appreciate that insight. It's not really a discussion. I'm not going to prolong the
I got what you're
hour
saying,
by
yeah.
just talking
Right.
about operational stuff, because that's within the sheriff and your purview to run the operations of the sheriff's office. The only comment that I'm making is that when it comes to the budget, just like you so eloquently explained to us, the need for certain increases on certain line items, that's what we want you to bring to the budget talks.
Got it.
Now, as far as what is expected to be exceeded, yeah, we're going to have to pay that.
Right.
And that's, when it comes to taxpayers' dollars, it's not always a good look, but if we understand and the taxpayers can understand that this is the reason why, and that's not, I'm not even going to say that, then it would be more readily acceptable, I guess. But at the end of the day, I appreciate your explanation, and I really would appreciate just bringing that full disclosure, full transparency to the budget talk, so we can make sure that we adequately set your budget.
Yes, sir.
All right. We appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you.
All right. That being the last presentation, we stand adjourned.